Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063, the game streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
So did you see the big news? Shedeur Sanders has decided not to throw at the 2025 NFL Scouting Combine. Ian, I have to ask, were you surprised that Shedeur Sanders is opting out of competing at the Combine?
Doesn't everybody do that now?
I don't think everybody does that now. C.J. Stroud didn't do it.
Well, I guess no, I wasn't surprised.
I believe last year, and I'll have to look it up, but I believe that Bo Nix and Penix and those guys, J.J. McCarthy, threw. I think J.J. McCarthy's workout was the workout where everybody, after the workout was over, it was just dropping their pants, just drooling over J.J. McCarthy. Could be wrong about that, but I think that's how that went down. But I bring all this up because I wasn't shocked either when I saw the Ian Rappaport's tweet that said that Shedeur Sanders is going to, quote unquote, let the film speak loudly about his performance. Ian Rappaport also noted that he's going to throw on his pro day. And I'm sure there will be some private workouts in Boulder. So it's not that he's going to just let the film speak loudly. He's just not going to throw at the Combine. He's just not going to throw when he doesn't control the environment, when he doesn't control who the receivers are, when he doesn't control what the script of the workout is. And this is my problem with Shedeur Sanders. And I don't think the Titans, I have no sourcing on this. It just seems from all of the scuttlebutt, I don't think the Titans are interested in Shedeur Sanders with the first overall pick. And from what I've seen, I don't think the Titans should be interested in Shedeur Sanders with the number 1 overall pick. But here's my problem with Shedeur Sanders, that either I'm going to have to get over or he's going to fall in the draft, or somebody's just going to get over it. And it's either a non-factor or they're going to wish that they had done just a little bit more homework. Shedeur Sanders is acting like a top flight, for sure, number 1 draft prospect. Not like, he could go in the first round or he might have a low first round grade. He's not acting that way. He's acting like he's the first pick in the draft. He's acting the way that Travis Hunter is viewed in the draft. He's acting like that. He's not. He's not what Caleb Williams was last year. He's not what Drake May or Jaden Daniels was. And every single draft guru, even the ones, for the most part, that like Shedeur Sanders, that have him in the top 10 in their mock drafts, even they're like, yeah, these guys, they're not May or Daniels or Williams. And yet, Shedeur Sanders, who is not number 1 on anybody's big board, doesn't think he needs to go compete in Indianapolis. And everything that Shedeur Sanders seems to do just rubs me the wrong way. I'm tired of being told Shedeur Sanders is so good, Jared. He's going to be a superstar. Then why can't I watch him go to the Combine and compete and show all of us that he's going to be a superstar? I don't get it. Shedeur Sanders never beat anybody in college. Never beat anybody. 2 years at Colorado. Again, he's going to let the film speak loudly. He had 1 win over a ranked opponent, and that was against number 17 TCU, that was the defending runner-up and was not a good football team. Here's what Shedeur Sanders did in college against ranked opponents. Number 17 TCU, they won 45-42. Number 10, Oregon, they lost 42-6. Number 8, USC, 48-41. Number 23, UCLA, 28-16. Number 16, Oregon State, they lost 26-19. Number 22, Arizona, they lost 34-31. This year, number 18, Kansas State, they lost 31-28. And number 17, BYU, they lost 36-14. Somebody explain something to me. What am I missing here? What makes Shedeur Sanders the next great quarterback? Because everybody tells me, oh, Jared, you don't understand. Again, Shedeur Sanders has one meaningful win in his entire college career, and it came against a team that finished 5-7. A team that finished 3-6 in their own conference. Again, with Shedeur, it's always, oh yeah, no, don't worry about that red flag. At some point, doesn't Shedeur Sanders have to do something that, other than be Deion Sanders' son? Doesn't Shedeur Sanders have to do something on a football field that makes us think, you know what? This guy really does have number one potential. Because quite frankly, I'm tired of being told what it seems like Shedeur Sanders is not the case. Because it seems to me like Shedeur Sanders is entitled. It seems to me like Shedeur Sanders is not about all ball all the time. Shedeur Sanders is extra. But everybody tells me, oh, no, that's not fair. That's not right. And I have to believe what everybody tells me about Shedeur Sanders. I have to believe that Shedeur Sanders, again, the on-field squabbles, took a kid from Arizona State's mouthpiece and threw it into the stands, putting his wrist in the face of the Colorado State player, the blow-up with Cam Newton. I'm supposed to just ignore all of that. I'm supposed to ignore the fact that Shedeur Sanders beat one ranked opponent who that year finished 5-7. I'm supposed to ignore the fact that Shedeur Sanders was throwing to three receivers, Will Shepard, Travis Hunter, and Jimmy Horn Jr., who are all going to get drafted in the NFL. When people tell me, oh, no, the team sucked, Jared, didn't stop Travis Hunter from showing us all the time how good Travis Hunter is. Again, when it comes to Shedeur, I don't feel like I'm asking for too much. I'm asking for you to give me a reason for why I'm supposed to draft you. Is that too hard to ask? Well, I'll throw at my pro day. But you're not going to throw before that? You're not going to go compete at the combine? If you're going to be any good at the NFL, you're going to have to compete. When Shedeur Sanders went to college at Jackson State, his dad said this is going to be the quarterback. Deion Sanders' first first team meeting at Colorado. He told the players to go hit the portal because he was bringing his own luggage with him, and it was Louis Vuitton luggage. And he said his son was going to be the quarterback. Shedeur's never had to compete for anything. And when he has had to compete on the football field, which again, if I'm using the number one pick on a quarterback, I am using it so that you can help my football team win. Number 10, Oregon lost 42-6. Number 8, USC lost 48-41. Number 23, UCLA lost 28-16. Number 16, Oregon State lost 26-19. Number 23, Arizona lost 34-31. Number 18, Kansas State lost 31-28. Number 17, BYU lost 36-14. When does he win? What about him? Does he have elite size? Nope. Does he have elite athleticism? Nope. Does he have elite arm talent? Nope. Did he win a lot in college? Nope. Again, why am I taking this guy number one? And this is an opportunity at the combine for Shedeur Sanders to get out there and throw and to prove to people, this is the talent I have, and this is why you have to take me number one. I don't know if Cam Ward's going to throw. It would not surprise me if Cam Ward doesn't throw. But the difference is Cam Ward is legitimately, according to most people, the number one quarterback in this class. Jackson Dart is throwing. Jalen Milroe is throwing. Riley Leonard is throwing. And do you want to know why those guys are throwing? Because they have something to prove. If Shedeur Sanders wants me to believe that he's good enough to be the first overall pick in the draft, go prove it. Go compete. If you told me that Colin Cowherd and Dan Patrick were retiring, and every single meaningful radio executive was interested in perhaps me taking their spot, you want to know what I would do? I wouldn't sit down with them and say, hey, guess what? I can host a radio show, trust me. I'd say, go listen. Go listen to what I say. But not Shedeur. Shedeur you have to watch him lose to BYU 36-14, and then everybody will still tell you have to take him number one. Again, Shedeur Sanders is the only prospect in this class who apparently doesn't have to compete. Didn't have to win on the football field, doesn't have to compete at the combine, and I'm the bad guy for saying, excuse me, why is this guy supposed to be in the discussion for the number one pick? So I'm not surprised because, again, that's the in vogue thing to do when you are a top draft prospect. Caleb Williams didn't throw at the combine. Caleb Williams also won the Heisman Trophy. Jaden Daniels, I don't think, threw at the combine. He also won the Heisman Trophy. Drake May got North Carolina to an ACC championship game. Those guys were all viewed as top of the draft picks. Shedeur is 17th on some of these big boards. And he doesn't think he has to compete? And that's not supposed to rub me the wrong way? Somebody explain that to me. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number if you want to weigh in, 615-737-1025. And Dane Brugler, who is the lead draft analyst for The Athletic, Dane Brugler had a tweet yesterday that I saw, and I was kind of like, whoa, it kind of felt like a shots fired when it came to this Shedeur Sanders decision not to throw at the combine. And this is another reason that makes me very uncomfortable about the idea of the Titans taking him. We'll get to that next. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. It's Stillman and Company, 102.5-106.3 The Game.
When the Combine workouts begin later this week, quarterback Shedeur Sanders will not be working out. He's going to the Combine to go through the interview process. Look, there are guys who strategically decide every year that it makes no sense to go and throw or do anything. Don't run, don't jump, don't do anything. The hay's in the barn. The film is locked. If you want to meet me, you want to talk to me, that's great, but I'm not going to work out. And I fully support it. I get mad when media gets mad at the fact that you're not entertaining us. Why don't you go out and throw? We want to be entertained.
Yeah.
Let the guy make his decision.
Right.
He makes the decision that's right for him, and he's making the decision that's right for him, and I say go for it.
That was Florio this morning saying, how dare you? How dare you be upset that Shedeur Sanders is not competing at the Combine? And I'm not upset that Shedeur Sanders is not competing at the Combine. That's not my how dare you. My how dare you is, how dare you tell me this guy is worthy of the number one pick when he didn't win in college and his arm strength is suspect. And you're telling me that I have to accept that this guy is the best choice for me to pick to go toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes with, even though he has no interest in proving it. Again, he didn't win at Colorado. But Jared, the offensive line there was so bad, and it was so, okay. So then go show me that when it comes to just you, when it is individualized to just you, when you don't have Travis Hunter to throw the football to, that you can win. Because you won't have Travis Hunter to throw the football to if the Tennessee Titans use the number one pick on him. So why is Shedeur Sanders not throwing at the Combine? And most people seem to believe that it is because he will look inadequate to Cam Ward. I saw Dane Brugler, who is the lead draft analyst for The Athletic. And I love this because, whenever somebody from The Athletic says something, then Joe Rexroad really can't refute it. Like if I say something, Joe can say in the morning, oh, well, Jared, But if somebody at The Athletic says something, Joe's like, it has to be right. It has to be true. It has to be completely correct. So when Ian Rappaport put out the PR release that Shedeur Sanders was not going to be competing at the Combine, somebody named Hayden Winks, Ian, I have no idea who Hayden Winks is. He's the director at Underdog Fantasy. I'm sure he's very important.
Okay.
Hayden Winks says, I think there is another obvious reason he's not throwing live next to his peers. Dane Brugler said in response, facts. One word, facts. There is another reason that Shedeur Sanders doesn't want to throw next to the rest of the draft class. Well, doesn't that kind of worry you? In fact, there was some chatter online that by having the last name of Sanders, which starts with an S, he would be next to Tyler Shuck, which also starts with an S. And that Tyler Shuck would make Shedeur Sanders look bad by comparison. Tyler Shuck? Guys, I watched Tyler Shuck play this year. I had never heard of Tyler Shuck before Louisville decided to make him the starting quarterback. And like any fan, I'm like, who the hell's this guy? Tyler Shuck is like 35 years old. He was Justin Herbert's backup at Oregon. That's how long he's been in college football. Tyler Shuck has had injury issues. He's played at Texas Tech. Tyler Shuck was our quarterback at Louisville this year, and Tyler Shuck is a good college quarterback. I watched every game he played this year. He's fine. But when I watch Tyler Shuck play, and again, that's an every game thing, he's a backup. Like, he's a backup in the NFL. That's what he'll be. And I think he'll be a good backup. But he's a backup. Kind of like, you guys remember Chad Henne? That's the kind of player he's going to be. And that's who Shedeur Sanders is afraid of competing with. And I'm supposed to use the number one pick on this guy who can't line up next to Tyler freaking Shuck? I do not understand that. So again, if I use the number one pick on a quarterback, whether it's Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart, Jared Stillman, whomever I use that pick on, I am now telling the world that I am going to try to go beat Joe Burrow with that guy as my quarterback. I am going to try to go beat C.J. Stroud with that guy as my quarterback. Mahomes, Allen, Lamar Jackson, doesn't matter. I'm going to try to beat these guys with you. But he's afraid of competing against Tyler Shuck. And I know that a lot of people are starting to get on the Tyler Shuck bandwagon. I saw Greg Cosell said that just watching the film, Tyler Shuck is QB2, I believe, behind Cam Ward in this class. And so there's going to be some people that are hot for Tyler Shuck. Again, I went to Louisville. I watch every Louisville game. If you wanted to know about a player from Louisville, who would you ask? Because you know I've got hooks in the program. And again, Shuck's a good kid. He's a little injury prone, solid college quarterback. But after watching him, and I've watched him a lot, he profiles in the NFL to being a backup. So again, I keep circling back to this entitlement thing, which is, why am I supposed to just believe that Shedeur's good enough to be the number one pick without there being any proof that he actually is? And I have some of these same reservations with Cam Ward too. Again, I don't think Cam Ward's going to throw at the combine because, again, it is in vogue when you are the top quarterback to not throw at the combine. Bryce Young didn't throw at the combine. Maybe Ward does throw. I don't know. But it is somewhat in vogue. And I think that, again, there's enough there with Cam Ward that he's going to go within the top 4 or 5 picks. He shouldn't, but that's the problem with this quarterback class, is he's going to go. But I have issues with Cam Ward too. Cam Ward won more in college than Shedeur Sanders, but he didn't really win anything of note. But again, I keep circling back to Sanders. He puts out a rap video during draft season, and I'm supposed to not say, is his focus not on football? Oh my God, Jared, how could you? He gets into people's faces, and I'm supposed to not say, seems a little entitled. Oh no, Jared, how could you? It just kind of feels like with Shedeur Sanders, I'm just supposed to take everybody's word for it that he's good. Even though, again, I'm looking for the actual proof. 615-737-1025 here on the program. We'll get to your phone, 615-737-1025. Plus, I'm just going to call it how I see it. I think there are some people out there that really do believe in Shedeur Sanders. I think Cam Ward really does, or I think TD really does believe in Shedeur Sanders. Like, I really think he does. He thinks Shedeur Sanders is special. And I do think, that's a fair opinion. And if TD's right and everybody else is wrong and Shedeur Sanders becomes a superstar, then the next time the Titans fire this guy, I'll say go hire TD, because clearly he knows better than the guys actually being the GMs. But I also think in the media, like the greater NFL media, there's another issue with the coverage of Shedeur Sanders. I want to get to that in your phones. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Those are my guys whenever there is an issue at the home. It is Hiller who is the first that I call out there. Hiller has been in business since 1990. They are family-owned and operated. And my guy, Jimmy Hiller, was recently named amongst the most admired CEOs because of the way he truly cares for his team and his clients. And I know that, and that's why I am a Hiller customer. Hiller takes care of the customer on every job, every single time. And they stand behind their work with 100% satisfaction of happy you will be, or your service is free. If a customer is not pleased with the work performed, they will make it right. Learn more at happyhiller.com. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds of Balls and Baby. Hiller, call that fish truck today.
Right now, I have Cam number 1.
Wow. And if you were Tennessee that needs a quarterback, you would run
If I
the
was
team.
picking right now, and I've
you're
talked to
gonna run
all
the
these
team
guys, and
again.
look,
And you're
everybody,
gonna run a team again.
and everybody knows how much I love Deion Sanders, and that is my guy. And he has supported me from the time we were players to now.
You're going to take Ward first.
I would objectively take Cam
All right.
Ward first.
Good answer.
I mean, did Louis Riddick really have to preface what he was going to say with, and everybody knows that I'm good friends with Deion. And Deion, if you're listening, I want you to know this is not personal. Please do not take this the wrong way, Deion. Please forgive me, Deion, but I would take Cam Ward number 1. Do you really have to do that? But Louis Riddick says Ward over Shedeur, but at least he thinks Shedeur is good. I won't know because he won't throw at the combine. And again, I'm fine with Jaden Daniels being like, I'm not throwing at the combine. Because at that point, Jaden Daniels is already locked in as a top pick. I'm not sure that Shedeur Sanders has done that. Jaden Daniels won the Heisman Trophy. But we got a bunch of phones, so let's get to them. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Trey, going to kick us off today on the program on Shedeur Sanders. Thank you for calling and waiting. Trey, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, just real quick. I mean, we see him. He got college footage, so it's like now all of a sudden you don't know if he can play. He got college footage playing, and not only that, he's throwing right beside Cam. And we can all see it. So I don't understand.
Where is he? What do you mean he's throwing right beside Cam and we can all see it?
This video of them practicing with their coach, with their quarterback coach.
You mean some clips on Twitter?
Almost daily. Yeah, I'm
so
just saying.
There's some clips on Twitter. So you think like when it comes to the NFL that you can watch these little clips on Twitter that are posted to say, we can draft them with the first pick?
That's not my point. No, that's not my point. My point is you can't say, okay, well, he's scared to throw against his counterparts when he's throwing with them right now. Quarterback coach. It's just weird. Why is he scared? I don't think he has anything to be scared of. He's already cemented. Whoever's going to pick him pretty much knows they're going to pick him at their first pick. I don't see really the combine making any changes for anybody in the top 10, period. So, I mean, he's going to be where he's going to be. Nothing's going to change now.
Doesn't that happen every year, though? Thank you for the call, Trey. Doesn't that happen every year where we say, like, I don't care about guys in their underwear. What difference does it make? And then Treylon Burks runs a 4.55, and all of a sudden he drops from, 9th in the mock drafts. And now Chris Olave runs a ridiculous time, and now he jumps up. Why is Xavier Worthy on the Chiefs? Because of the combine. Like, what are we talking about? So the combine absolutely matters. Last year, J.J. McCarthy absolutely won hearts over at the combine. And you're telling me, well, there's the film. You can watch the film. And so I will, again, go back to his college resume at Colorado, because somebody texted into the text line and said his college career is 36-14, but you don't think he won in college? You sound real underline right now. I don't know what that means, Ian. So if underline is like technically a curse word or something, then I apologize. I don't know exactly what that means, real underline. But again, I don't care what happened at Jackson State. Here was who Shedeur Sanders played in 2022, his last year at Jackson State. Florida A&M, TSU, Grambling State, Mississippi Valley State, Alabama State, Bethune-Cookman, Campbell, Southern, Texas Southern, Alabama A&M, Alcorn State, Southern, and NC Central. And they apparently lost to NC Central in the Cricket Celebration Bowl. They lost that game. I don't care what happened at Jackson State. So, again, in big boy college football, Shedeur Sanders has one win over a ranked opponent. That came at the beginning of the 23 season. They beat 17th ranked TCU, who went on to have a losing record at 5-7. Everything else was a loss. So then what you will do is you will tell me that it is not Shedeur's fault that they lost those games. And people will say it's the offensive line. The offensive line was bad, Jared, and you might be right. But now I have to decipher. Was it just that the offensive line was bad, or was it that Shedeur held on to the ball too long? We have questions about whether or not Shedeur Sanders has the arm strength to be a successful quarterback in the NFL. That's what the combine's for. Again, J.J. McCarthy won the national title at Michigan and didn't do anything. And so people thought like, second round pick when it comes to J.J. McCarthy. And then he went out to the combine and he absolutely lit it up. And now people are talking about New York at 6 might take J.J. McCarthy with the pick. The rationale was, and I didn't totally buy this either, by the way, but the rationale was that J.J. McCarthy was held back at Michigan because they ran the ball with Blake Corum and they had good lines and a good defense, and that's what Harbaugh wants to do. And so that's why they kept the Maserati in the garage when it came to J.J. McCarthy. Again, not something I totally believe, but apparently Kevin O'Connell does. So when you're like, just watch tape. Again, if you're a top for sure prospect where, again, we all see it, we all know it, got it. Abdul Carter against Notre Dame in the playoff, got it, understood. That's one thing. Like Ashton Genty, the running back, he's not going to do any of the drills at the combine, got it. But when there are question marks about you, I think you need to compete. And in this case, Shedeur Sanders, not interested in competing. One texter says, you continue to reference Shedeur Sanders' college record as if it matters. Patrick Mahomes' record was 13-16 as a college starter. Right. And Patrick Mahomes didn't go with the first overall pick. We're talking about, hey, are you entitled to be the first overall pick? Brett Veach, as the story goes in Kansas City, Brett Veach was a scout at the time, and he ran into Andy Reid's office and was like, you have to watch the tape on this guy. This is the best player I've ever seen. And Andy Reid watched the tape, and they were interested in Mahomes. Then they went and did their homework on him. The point being, Mahomes competed to prove, no. It's Texas Tech that's the problem, not me. With Sanders, you're telling me it's Colorado, minus the NFL receivers I was throwing to. It's Colorado and this terrible offensive line's fault, not me. Okay, well, prove that to me. Show me. Again, you don't think Mahomes, and I don't remember the 17 combine and how Mahomes looked. You can't tell me that Patrick Mahomes in short T-shirts didn't look awesome out there slinging the ball. One texter says, if you're a GM with a high pick, you travel to the combine to watch the top two quarterbacks. One doesn't do nothing and the other balls out. Does that matter? So it, again, depends on who you're talking to, how much that matters. It did not matter to Carolina 2 years ago when it was Young and Stroud participated and Young didn't, and Carolina still used the number one pick on Bryce Young. I will say this, to some older school football people, it matters. The idea of competing at the combine. Last year, I was on Sirius XM on a Friday night, probably like the Friday that's ahead of us right here. I was on Sirius XM that night. And the big story was Caleb Williams did not want to do the medical at the combine. Caleb Williams wanted to, my team has advised me that we're going to only meet with a couple of teams here. We're not going to worry about these other teams, and we're not going to. And I said that night, I said, I would love to not have the first pick. Because if I had the first pick, I'd have to take Caleb Williams. And there's just too much crap there with Caleb Williams for me to get excited about. I'd much rather have the second pick. I'd much rather have the third pick. Because if Caleb Williams goes on to be a superstar and I have the second pick, nobody can get mad at me for the fact that I didn't pick Caleb. But if Caleb doesn't go on to be a superstar and all these red flags that were out there are cause of concern, he's not really all that interested in football. He's all about himself. His dad's a problem, all those things. Well, I still have to take him because he's going to be a superstar from a talent standpoint, and you just can't pass on a generational talent, even though there might be more to the story there. So these things do matter. And then what happens is every year people tell me it doesn't matter. And then for the most part, we see that it kind of did matter. One text says Sanders is going to be a complete bust in the NFL. He is never going to be a true starting quarterback. He is nothing but drama, and he wants to be a rapper. Okay, that might be a little over the top for me. I have no idea if when it comes to Shedeur Sanders, if he's going to be any good or not in the NFL. I have no idea. One text from the text line says Steve McNair's last season was second in the SWAC. Let's not act like good quarterbacks can't play crap competition. The combine is just a TV show now. No one is deciding a first pick on short workouts. Kevin O'Connell is. And again, I don't know what Steve McNair did or didn't do at the combine in 1995, but I feel comfortable in saying this. Ian, I do feel comfortable in saying this. And if you think that I shouldn't say this, then, go ahead and object. I mean, I think competing at the combine mattered to the old man.
Probably, yeah. I'd say that's probably fair.
I mean, I remember when Lamar Jackson weighed in at the combine but wouldn't do any of the drills, and he was like, I would not care about what his weight is if he's not going to do any of the drills.
Well, he cared about all types of stuff, like the running, the times. If you didn't run a 40, even he was skeptical of that.
He would not draft you if you did not run a 40. I will never forget two of my favorite stories. One time we're sitting there and we're at the combine and they're announcing over like the bench press is right by the radio row. And they're announcing like Johnny Joe, 13 reps. And Floyd's like reading a magazine. And I looked at him and I said, do you care about that? Like as a general manager, like, oh, he benched 13 reps. Floyd goes, like puts the magazine down, looks at me and goes, no. But that one guy yesterday from Northern Dakota State or whatever, he goes, that one guy yesterday that benched 34, I care about that. The other was we were walking by the bench press one time. We were heading like to our spot on the little radio row. So I have my backpack on and he's walking with me. And Damian Harris, the old Alabama running back, is doing the bench press. And Floyd just looks over, leans over like the little rail where Harris is doing the bench press. And he just goes, lock out, dumbass. Talking about his arms locking out. He's like, these guys always cheat. And I kind of do laugh about that. 615-737-1025. Speaking of the combine, there is one story there where there is just too much smoke for me to ignore it. And I'm starting to think I got a feel on what may be going on. We'll get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in. That's 615-737-1025. Nationals' best deal this week is from Barrio Burrito Bar in Murfreesboro. At Barrio Burrito Bar, every bite is a celebration of fresh ingredients, vibrant spices, and bold flavors, dancing on your taste buds like a fiesta in your mouth. I got to tell you, that makes me want one of these burritos right now. Head to theGameNational.com/deals and get half off a $25 gift card while supplies last.
Well, I talked to a team source who said the Los Angeles Rams definitely want Matthew Stafford back and that they're trying to talk through what could be a new contract. What will have to be a new contract because he's due only $27 million in cash this year on a $50 million cap hit. That is simply untenable. Whether they can work out the deal is the question. If they can't, certainly there'd be a lot of interest league-wide in executing a trade. Look at all the teams around the league that need one, starting with the New York Giants. They would love to have a quarterback like Matthew Stafford. But the sense around the league and with the people I've talked to inside the building is that cooler heads should prevail. Matthew Stafford's still a top 5 to 6 quarterback in this league, that they can work something out that he will remain a Ram.
That was Jeremy Fowler this weekend. And, people I talk to think that Stafford's still going to remain a Ram. And let me just say this. There is too much smoke when it comes to the Rams and Matthew Stafford. I cannot ignore it. This weekend, Tom Pelissero reporting, and everybody else has confirmed it, the Rams are allowing Matthew Stafford to go seek a trade. So Stafford's due to make $27 million in cash this year. The Stafford wants a raise because Trevor Lawrence and Tua are going to be making north of 50. So it's like, if Tua is making north of 50, what am I worth? And the Rams are like, okay, go see if you can find a trade. And, we want Matthew back. We want to work with him. And I'm starting to think that's bullcrap. So when I first heard that there was, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this, disagreements between the Stafford camp and the Rams camp, I thought, well, that's going to work itself out. Like, the Rams are not moving on from Matthew Stafford. They were right there last year against the Eagles in the snow in the playoffs. Stafford is still a good quarterback. They got a good young core. Like, they are not pulling back. It is not time to rebuild in LA when you are that close to the Super Bowl champions on their turf. Now, I get moving off of Cooper Kupp, but moving off of your starting quarterback? Come on now. But if the Rams wanted to make this go away, they would. Just pay more money. Again, he's due $27 million. And I know that this isn't very popular because we love to use the word restructure because it gives some sort of meaning that we don't really truly understand. Restructuring is a basic restructure is just, here's all the money up front. But what teams really don't like doing is just giving guys raises. Well, you're due to make $10 million. So what they do is they extend the contract. They get something out of it. You don't want to extend Matthew Stafford's contract because he's already old. But the Rams have just given raises before. Aaron Donald threatened to retire after they won the Super Bowl, and they gave him a raise. Cooper Kupp didn't even complain. And he won the Triple Crown and Super Bowl MVP. And they gave him a raise. So why not just give Stafford a raise? Stafford, if Dak Prescott is worth $60 million a season, Matthew Stafford is not worth 26. And the Rams know that. And the Rams are not some traditionally cheap organization. This isn't the Cincinnati Bengals we're talking about. This is the Rams. So I'm starting to think that A, this smoke is legit, and B, the Rams are the ones who want the divorce, not Stafford. I talked to somebody who's very plugged in with the Rams of the Super Bowl. And I said to them, I go, hey, I got to ask, is this Stafford stuff legit? Because remember, Stafford's wife had come out with the podcast being like, if we move, so be it. And I said to somebody who's very plugged in with the Rams, I said, is this stuff legit? And they told me, they said, yeah, but it's probably not Matthew that the Rams are ready to move on from. Talking about Matthew Stafford. It's Kelly Stafford and all the Rams don't care about Kelly Stafford. The Rams are a well-run organization. They do not care about Kelly Stafford. If they want Kelly Stafford to hush, then they'll just pay Matthew more money. We know they're not cheap. We know that they're not paying above market if it gets a deal done. It kind of makes me think that the Rams are the ones looking towards the future saying, yeah, you're 37, dog. Like, all of our other players are young. Puka is young. Jared Verse is young. Braden Fisk is young. Kyron Williams is young. We're ready to move on. And if you had told me that straight up at the end of the season that the Rams would be the ones, I would be stunned. But I do think that's what's happening here. I think that, again, Stafford's not going to play for $26 million. And if the Rams wanted to solve the problem, they could easily solve the problem. 615-737-1025. I do want to read this text just because Shedeur Sanders is a lot of bark for no bite. He's the NFL's version of the Ball brothers or Bronny James. First of all, way different than the Ball brothers and Bronny James. The Ball brothers, I think, isn't the youngest one actually pretty good?
I think he might be
Now,
okay.
the other two, Lonzo's always hurt and the other one sucks. But I think the third one is pretty good. And then Bronny James, that's embarrassing for the league. I can't believe Adam Silver didn't step in and stop that. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number on the program, 615-737-1025. I went to the Predators game last night, and boy, did they get their tushies kicked. And a lot of people are very angry about it. I was not one of them. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game National Studios and presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. Ian, rough one last night for the Predators.
Yeah, not pretty, huh?
So this weekend, I watched both the games Saturday, went to the game last night. And I did, by the way, start my 7-day free trial on Prime Video of FanDuel Sports South or whatever it's called. I have started the free trial, and it was very simple. Like, you just go right into Prime Video and you click the Predators, and it's like subscribe to the Braves, Reds, and Preds and Carolina Hurricanes for $19.95 a month after a 7-day free trial. Or, subscribe to those teams plus like the Atlanta Hawks and somebody else for $25 a month. And I was like, I'm good with the Preds and the Braves. And so I clicked that one. And quite frankly, I did this for the Braves more than I did this for the Preds because this season is a wash. But I did watch the Prime Video stream. Little laggy, which I was disappointed in. It's probably FanDuel's fault, not Prime Video's fault, since I never had this problem with Thursday Night Football. But a little laggy, I'm not going to lie. But I did go to the game yesterday, and they did get their butts kicked, and they do stink. They went 1-1 over the weekend, and last night was awful, and they were awful. But I was shocked during the game, after the game, last night, when I was on my phone, and I saw on the For You tab, Preds fans just up in arms, furious about how bad last night's game was, and furious about how bad the team is. Social media, even people reached out to me on Saturday. They won on Saturday. And people reached out to me and they were like, you got to light up the Preds. They got to change. They got to, And last night on Twitter, was like, something's got to change. It's awful. It's terrible. It's Guys, let's call a spade a spade. For the rest of this season, this team needs to lose. This team needs the best draft pick they can get. And the only way to do that is by losing. They're not going to have the worst record in the game. That's going to go to San Jose, which I have to wonder, Ian, how many years in a row San Jose is going to get to pick a top player in the first round before they finally get good. But that did work for Edmonton, so maybe it'll work for San Jose.
Works for some team, not so much others. Buffalo,
True. But at the same time, that ping pong ball could come up in your favor. And you could draft that kid from BC who is supposedly really good. And he could be your second line center next year. I heard Adam Vingan talking about that today. Talking about the Predators have got to figure out what they're going to do down the middle, that a guy like Shedeur Sanders might be part of the solution, but he also might not be. David Edstrom has never played in professional hockey, or at least North American professional hockey, and he's their top center prospect. So who knows? But if you take the kid out of BC, maybe he goes in next year. He's the second line center. Ryan O'Reilly's the first line center. He's the second. Again, you need that pick. And if you go back to Saturday, UC Saros actually stole the game, which I'm a little surprised by because, of course, I've been all over UC Saros. But he had 2.05 goals saved above expected. They won 2-1. And when they won Saturday night, and they did not play well on Saturday night, when they won on Saturday night, my thinking was, oh, God, here comes the incredible Saros, the same guy who did this 2 years ago, that right when it stopped mattering, he almost single-handedly got this team in the playoffs and almost single-handedly saved John Hines' job. I love my hockey team, but I don't want them to win any more games this season. Lose them all for all I care. Is it the golden ticket to getting out of the cellar? Probably not. But I don't see any real benefit from winning last night's game against New Jersey. If Saros had gotten this team into the playoffs a couple of years ago, would that have been a good thing? And I know you guys hate watching it and watching them play like absolute crap. I watched it last night. It was awful. I hate watching it. And I don't want to start caring more about college basketball just because on Tuesdays and Thursday nights, the Predators aren't as juicy as we were hoping they would be this year. But at some point, you have to admit, it is what it is, and that the only thing this team can gain from this godforsaken season, when this started, I thought this team was going to be comfortably in the playoffs the entire year. I thought the Predators were going to be bouncing between second and third in the Central Division. And the question was, are they going to host in the first round of the playoffs, or are they going to have to play that Game 7 on the road? That was really all I was wondering about. I'm like, this team should be good enough to get to the second round of the playoffs. It has been an unmitigated disaster from the very first game when the franchise goalie, for whatever reason, couldn't play. Well, if you're going to live through this godforsaken season, doesn't there have to be some positive taken out in the end? And isn't the high draft pick, isn't that the positive? Well, you guys know as well as I do. If the Predators get hot down the stretch, they have no shot of making the playoffs. So these are all empty calorie victories. And all they do is decrease the chances of you being able to pick an impact player. I looked it up the other day. The Athletic has recently redone their top prospect rankings, and none of your guys are considered top prospects. Like the Predators love Tanner Molendyk, and the Predators love Andrew Gibson, and the Predators love David Edstrom, and the Predators love Joakim Kemmel. Like they love these guys, and they're like, these young prospects, according to the Athletic, none of them are considered elite level prospects. Like potential top pair defensemen, potential first line forwards, none of them. So you need this pick. Again, I'm not banking the entire future of the Predators on it, but I'm banking a lot of it to get something out of this godforsaken season. So when I was at the game last night and I watched New Jersey go up 1-0, and then I watched New Jersey make it 2-0, and then Mom and Dad were a little tired last night, I'm not going to lie, so we left kind of early, which, by the way, 5 p.m., the 5 p.m. puck drops, not a bad thing. But as I was at the game, like, it was awful. But to see the amount of people on Twitter that are like, oh, God, this is terrible. We have to do something right now. There's nothing right now that's going to help except more losing. Like, that's it. That's the only thing that can help. I hate it. You guys hate it. I get it. I mean, I started this year thinking this team was good enough to win. Now I'm sitting here hoping this team will lose. That's not a fun place to be. I mean, I got tickets to the game tomorrow night. It's like, man, do I want to go watch the Florida Panthers beat the crap out of them? But the last thing I want is for them to beat the Florida Panthers tomorrow night. And I think we all have to get on the same page that the best way forward is to just, as soon as this godforsaken season is over, just light it on fire and move on, and hopefully move on with the number 2 pick in the draft. And hopefully the number 2 pick in the draft can be an impact player that can come in here and be on the team next year. And again, not be a superstar, because Connor Bedard is not a superstar right now. Macklin Celebrini is not a superstar right now in terms of carrying their team to victory. But eventually they probably will be. And for you, that's what I'd like to see with this draft pick. But you're not going to get the draft pick by winning meaningless games. So this season's a train wreck. It's a disaster. They should get rid of every valuable asset they have, which they don't have that many. They got to figure out something new for next year. We'll grill Barry Trotz about it tomorrow. But don't get upset on Twitter when they lose. That's what you want, or at least I think that's what you should want, is I think you should want them to lose. 615-737-1025. We'll get to your phones on this. Now, I will say this. There's one person who's probably going to pay the price for this, and I'm not sure there's really any other option. We'll get to that coming up. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.
And not getting challenged right now. He's just going to hold on to it. and let the time run out on this one. It will be a 5-0 victory for New Jersey here tonight.
You've seen a lot of hockey. Have you seen anything quite like this year for your group offensively, just in terms of a lot of times you got the puck and the puck's just not going in this year?
No, I haven't. It's feel for the group. It's tough. And, we thought we kind of got out of it there for a while, and now we're kind of back in it. And things aren't really going for anybody. I think all the things that for scoring that I feel is important, I think we do. We just don't score. So it's obviously frustrating for them. It's frustrating for me. And it's been a very trying year that way.
That was Andrew Burnett last night after the game. And I got to tell you, I am perplexed by the Andrew Burnett situation. Somebody into the text line said, and our phone lines, of course, are driven by WilsonCountyHonda.com, says, you're not objective with the Titans or the Predators. You get your little baby feelings all wrapped up in the coaches and GMs, and you're not objective. You have been tossing Barry Trotz softballs since the day he got here. It's lazy and comedically bad. Well, let me respond to that text with this topic, which is, I know Andrew Burnett's a good coach. I know he's no nonsense. He's won enough as a head coach for us to know that he's not a total buffoon, and he's got a track record of success. And yet, at the same time, I'm not sure how he can return as the coach next year. Like, I like Andrew Burnett, and I think Andrew Burnett is a good coach. But this team has way too much talent on it to be this bad. And they aren't getting any better. They can't score enough, which is his specialty. And no young guys are taking a step forward. Add in the fact that Steven Stamkos is now going through the worst stretch of his entire career. And you have the reality of where they sit. It's almost like I don't understand how the guy that was the coach last year, when they had that epic turnaround after I went with the team to St. Louis, has had this miserable of a season. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. Somebody help me. And again, I think Burnett's a good coach. But at this point, I'm not sure they really have any answer after the season other than going in a different direction. And my gut tells me he probably knows that. Like, he probably knows they're going to give this group another shot. With Stamkos and Marchessault, Brady Shea, Forsberg, Yossi, Saros, they're going to give this group another shot. There's nothing drastic, in my opinion, that's going to happen between now and the start of next season, other than they'll trade Gus Nyquist for a 4th-round pick, and they might move Michael McCarron for future considerations, and they'll make an AHL trade here, or they'll make a little move. You know, that Carrier for that Justin Barron, who, Ian, I'm sorry, he sucks. Number 20?
He's got some offensive skills, but struggles some in the D zone.
He stinks. Like, I was watching him this one, I'm like, this guy, he's awful. But so, again, like maybe some minor stuff like that. But the basic group is going to be the same. Maybe they sprinkle in some of their prospects here or there. Maybe the number 2 pick overall, the kid from BC, maybe he's on the team next year. Amen. But again, it's going to be pretty much the same group next year. And with that being the case, there's no way that Andrew Burnett can return as the coach. He just can't. They have to go in a different direction. And I'll ask Barry about it tomorrow. I highly doubt Trotz is going to reveal anything until it's time to reveal, but you never know until you ask the question. But as much as I like Andrew Burnett, and as much as I believe in Andrew Burnett as a coach, I think he's a good coach. I've been around enough coaches to know pretty quickly when somebody's full of it and when somebody can coach. I'm convinced this guy can coach. But I just don't think there's really any logic that would justify keeping him when there are always going to be good coaches who hit the market every NHL offseason. People will ask now, they'll say things like, well, who are you going to get, Jared? Who's going to be hired? Who's going to? And people are mentioning Joel Quenneville's name as a possibility. I am morally opposed to Joel Quenneville because of what went down in Chicago. And I don't care that Stan Bowman got a job in Edmonton. That's their business, not mine. But there will be plenty of good coaches that hit the market. It happens every year where there's like 4 firings in the NHL after the first round of the playoffs where you're like, they fired him? And so one of those guys that's going to get fired, who I would love to have coach the Predators. I'll never forget when the Predators hired John Hines. And I'm like, why not wait and hire the best coach and not just the best total coach? Like, why just rush to hire this guy immediately? And then like a week later, Gerard Gallant got fired or Peter DeBoer got fired. And I was like, what? Could have had Peter DeBoer, could have had Gerard Gallant, but it had to rush to go get John Hines. I'm in no rush. There will be somebody at the end of the year worth hiring. They'll have to hire him. And that's just the reality of the league. Again, 2 years ago, Vandy football, they had a horrible season. In 2022, they had a nice little run. They won 5 games. They beat Kentucky at Kentucky when Will Levis was the quarterback. And they had a quarterback. And Vandy, they looked like they were in position. And it was a train wreck in 23. And I was so perplexed by that because I knew that Clark Lee was a good coach. At least I thought. I'm like, I've been around a lot of ball coaches in my life, and I know bull crap when I see it. And that's not what Clark Lee's about. He's a good coach. So when they didn't fire him, I was like, man, I hope for the best with Clark because I like him and he's a good guy, but you can't win 2 games and keep your job. And that's why, again, because he's a good coach, he looked in the mirror, he scrapped everything, he brought in Jerry Kill, he brought in Diego Pavia, and boom, they're beating Alabama. And I was like, see, I knew it. I knew he could coach. That's kind of how I feel about Andrew Burnett. Like, I know Andrew Burnett can coach. But at the same time, they can't run it back with him because they have to change something. And the contracts are locked into the point to where it'd be too difficult to kind of make any massive moves there. So the reality is Andrew Burnett's going to coach through the end of the season and they can fire him. And I don't think there's any other choice on top of it. One texter says, it's not the coach, it's the GM. He left this team with crap. And that might be the case. And if it is the case that Brady Shea stinks, that Stamkos is too old, that Marchessault ain't got it, that there's a reason that Vegas let him go, even though they kind of wanted him back. There's a reason that Tampa let Stamkos go for Jake Gensel, who's nothing more than a good role player, but that's why they let him go. And the reason was their metric said he was too old, he wasn't good enough, he wasn't this, he wasn't that. If that's the case, then Barry Trotz will ultimately lose his job for it down the road. But as far as the immediate, you're already too committed to get rid of the players, so you get rid of the coach. And then, if that doesn't work out, you get rid of the players and the guy who's picking the players. And again, I don't think this is anything that like Barry Trotz would be surprised about. Like when he comes on the program tomorrow, and it's like, man, another terrible stretch here. Steven Stamkos, career-long drought. Are you worried that Steven Stamkos was a little too long in the tooth when you signed him? Like that, those aren't crazy questions to ask. I get it.
I do wonder how different the roster is or the expectations are for the team than when Trotz first hired Brunette. I don't know. He made some comments this year about, oh, I think Andrew's a good young coach. I hired Andrew to grow with the team, with a young team. But that was not this year. You know, they didn't need a young coach to grow with the team this year. Maybe that was when they hired him the first time, but they needed a coach who was ready to win this year. And so I don't know. Seems like a little bit of a disconnect when it comes to that.
I mean, I think they're going to have to go get a new coach, regardless of what Barry's plans were. Like, I bet Barry's probably sitting there as stumped as I am. Like, I'm sure he's probably sitting there thinking, like, God, why is this so bad? But you have two choices. You can either do something about it or do nothing, and hope is not a strategy. And retaining Andrew Burnett would be the definition of just hoping it gets better. And there's been no evidence this year that that's going to happen. So, again, like, quite frankly, I could guarantee it and not feel bad guaranteeing it. I see no way that Andrew Burnett returns as the Predators coach next year. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in on this. 615-737-1025 here on the program. Man, people are just rough when it comes to this terrible season with the Predators, but man, it's been bad. 615-737-1025. It's Stillman and Company. And speaking of the Predators, do not miss Smashville Live this Wednesday night at Brewhouse 100 in Bellevue. See your Predator star players up close and personal, and you can also get autographs and pictures. And that's this Wednesday at Brewhouse 100 in Bellevue. You have Abdul Carter at 1-1. In order to move, what would it take to get you to move off Abdul Carter?
I don't mind future first round picks and even future second round picks, because this is a team, the Titans, that needs a whole lot of players. They're not going to restock their team and make a Super Bowl run in 2025. It's not going to happen. And so I wouldn't mind having the patience, but that's what it would take, because again, when you talk about picks, you're talking about players. And this is a team that doesn't just need guys. Okay, so at linebacker, I got a guy. He's okay. He's an average NFL player. No, this is a team that is largely bereft of game-changing playmakers. And it's difficult to find those guys farther down in the draft. Now, you do find those guys farther down in the draft, but you're more likely to find them higher in the draft.
Okay, that was Trevor on Abdul Carter, and we do have some news on Abdul Carter. According to Adam Schefter, Penn State defensive end and potential number 1 pick Abdul Carter will not work out at the combine because he is not fully recovered from the shoulder injury he suffered versus Boise State, according to his agents Drew Rosenhaus and Robert Bailey. Carter played through the injury versus Notre Dame in the semifinal game, but was only recently cleared to resume training. Quote, "We fully expect Abdul to be recovered in time to work out his pro day at Penn State, and he will perform at a very high level," Drew Rosenhaus said. Carter will partake in physical exams and interviews with teams at the combine. Rosenhaus said he's also sending a letter today to all NFL teams from Dr. Dan Cooper, stating that Carter has just now been cleared to resume training and will be cleared for his March 28th pro day. Cooper examined Carter's shoulder in Dallas earlier this month. Now, people will say, Jared, you got all over Shedeur Sanders earlier today for not competing at the combine. Are you not going to get all over Abdul Carter, who, if the draft was held today, and if I was sitting there on the clock with the first pick and I had to make it, it would be Abdul Carter? And so you would say, well, Jared, is that not hypocritical that you get on Shedeur Sanders for not competing at the combine, but not Abdul Carter? And here's my thought on the Abdul Carter thing. Number one, Abdul Carter does not need to participate at the combine because, unlike Shedeur Sanders, there is no question about where Abdul Carter sits in this draft class. Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter don't have to do any drills outside of their own pro days. They don't have to do any drills or any of that stuff because one of them's probably going to go number 1. The other one's going to go number 2. I didn't have a problem with Bryce Young not competing at the combine. I didn't. It's when you're trying to prove yourself that I feel the need to compete. But Abdul Carter not competing at the combine is not my problem as much as it is Abdul Carter's shoulders hurt. Like, excuse me? That's the headline here. Again, because the combine is this week, and because the combine has become a made-for-TV event, everybody wants to see the top players play. Everybody wants to see how fast the fast guys run. Everybody wants to. Abdul Carter not participating is not a big deal to me. It's not news to me. It's not Abdul Carter's shoulder being hurt. That matters to me. Now, the one thing that was clearly left out of this, which I think is very important, is they did not say Abdul Carter had surgery. Very important. The second thing that is important to me is that he will partake in the physical exams at the combine. The physical exams are the greatest physical anybody ever receives. The old man used to talk about that all the time. The reason that the combine is so convenient to Indianapolis for the NFL is not because it's in the center of the country, though that doesn't hurt. And it's not that it's downtown is really centralized with hotels and restaurants and things like that. You can find plenty of cities that are in better weather places in order to host the combine. But what Indianapolis has that these other cities don't necessarily have is the proximity to the hospital where they have the physicals. And the old man used to be a huge, huge, huge proponent of the world-class physicals that these guys receive at the combine. Doctors from each team go, trainers go, etc. And so when I hear Abdul Carter's hurt, now all of a sudden I'm a little nervous. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But Schefter, in his tweet, which clearly he got the info from Rosenhaus, did not mention a surgery that we haven't heard about, and at the same time said he will partake in the medical exams. And I think Floyd told me a story that these medical exams are so much more detailed than anybody ever has. That's why every now and then they come up with a so-and-so has to retire due to football because they went to the combine and they have an enlarged heart or things they haven't seen before. Floyd said there was one guy who went to the combine and didn't know he only had one kidney. That is the type of exams that they do at the combine, the world-class physicals that they get. So with Abdul Carter having a shoulder injury, that shoulder will be super examined. But here is one thing the Titans have to get out of the business of. And I saw that Todd Torricelli, the team's trainer, retired, I think a couple of weeks ago. Now, I don't know Todd Torricelli from a jar of Vicks. And I don't know if Todd Torricelli decided time was time. Chad Brinker, in the press release, talked about how he's the greatest trainer who ever lived and how the Titans will miss him dearly. And when people talk about Todd Torricelli, that is the reputation that he seems to have. But I also know that the Titans have had a lot of injured players over the last couple of years. One thing the Titans absolutely have to get out of the business of, investing in injured players. John Robinson did it with Corey Davis, and I didn't like it. Corey Davis didn't work out before the draft. They took him 5th overall, and he was never really that fast. That's a problem. Harold Landry, injured before the draft, been a good pick. Jeffrey Simmons, injured before the draft, been a solid pick. But then you get into Caleb Farley, and then on the free agent front, L'Jarius Sneed and Julio Jones. And it's like, guys, they got to stop investing in injured players. So the headline to me is not Abdul Carter won't compete at the combine. Because again, the guys that are usually locked in at 1-1, and in this case, there are 2. There's Hunter and Carter. Guys that are usually locked in at 1-1 don't compete. That's fine. I don't love it. I would like everybody to compete, but to me, that's okay. But when I see Abdul Carter's hurt, all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa, whoa. Abdul Carter's hurt. And again, over the years, the Titans have invested in injured players, something that I do not like. The old man was very much an injurist. He wasn't sexist. He wasn't racist, but he was an injurist. And if you were injured, he didn't like you. And that's kind of how I feel. So I want some more details when it comes to this Abdul Carter shoulder injury again, and to assuage the concerns. Rosenhaus tells Schefter he suffered it in the he suffered it in the Boise game, but he played through it in the Notre Dame game. Because they want to tell everybody, oh, Abdul Carter, this was affecting him in the Notre Dame game, and he still played great. That's what they're trying to tell you. I'm skeptical. I need my doctor at that physical exam to get in there on that shoulder, and instead of, I want you to pass Abdul Carter because I want to draft them, I would say to the doctor, I need a yes, a no, a how long, a how bad. I need those details. And I was going to be at Happy Valley anyways for the pro day. And again, I just want to make sure that Abdul Carter's weight is in order and all those little things before the pro day, because I know Abdul Carter can play. But I am worried. When I see shoulder injury, I'm like, whoa now. How injured? Because I cannot invest in injured players anymore with premiums. Cannot do it. 615-737-1025. Add that to the list. We'll get to your phones. 615-737-1025 here on our program. And plus, there is a quarterback that some people are connecting the Titans to. And there's a headline surrounding this quarterback that I think is a little misleading, but I don't think it excludes the Titans, even though for most people it probably would. We'll do that next. Stillman & Company, 105 the game.
So Rodgers said last week he wants two things: a team that wants him, which is like no, and it's got to be a good team. I talked about this Friday on PFTPM. Like, unless you're very loose with the definition of good, there aren't many choices for Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, the Rams, obviously, the Steelers.
Right.
Beyond that,
Yeah.
where are the good teams?
That was Mike Florio reacting to an Aaron Rodgers report. So I saw a headline: Aaron Rodgers wants to be where he's wanted, and he wants to be on a good team. And again, Florio said no S with that. But I saw the headline, and I'm like, oh, maybe the fact that he wants to be there, the fact that Aaron Rodgers wants to be on a team that's good, may take the Titans out of the running. Again, Aaron has been mentioned as a potential fit to the Titans. And then I saw the source of this Aaron Rodgers edict, that he wants to be on a team that wants him, and he wants to be on a good team. And it was a TMZ paparazzi video. The way this happens is TMZ they don't have people. People just stand outside places with their phones, wait for somebody famous, and then either snap a picture or, ambush them and approach them and put them on the spot. And then TMZ has the video. TMZ report on Aaron Rodgers. In fact, here is the TMZ video, and we had to jack up Aaron's volume on this because he's far away as far as the guy filming on his phone. But here was kind of Aaron Rodgers saying what he wanted in a future team.
We're in the West Coast. The weather's great. Do you see yourself potentially being in the West Coast in the future?
Oh, you're a paparazzi kid?
Yes, sir.
Oh, nice.
Any chance of you being in the West Coast in the future?
I'm just enjoying the sunshine right now.
The sunshine's good. And look, last question I want to ask you. When choosing a team, what is something you take into consideration? Like, what factors?
What factors?
Yeah.
If they want you,
They want you. What else? Anything else? Like,
they got a good team.
lovely. Well, look, wish you the best of luck, and best of luck for off-season too, mate.
Have a good day. Enjoy the sun.
So after that video, all of a sudden they take the words and they put them into an article, and the headline is Aaron Rodgers wants to be on a good team. I'm like, guys, this isn't like Aaron went on the McAfee show and Aaron said he wanted to be on a good team. This isn't like Aaron held a press conference and Aaron said he wanted to be on a good team. He's walking to his car and some schmagegi is standing there with his, phone and is like, what do you think about playing on the West Coast, mate? How would you feel about that? And Aaron's like, I'm just enjoying the sunshine. What would you be looking for in a new team? Well, you got to be wanted. And I don't know, they got to be good. And then all of a sudden people run with it like it's some kind of story. That's not really what went down. Here's the thing about Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron Rodgers, to me, it's 50-50 as to whether or not somebody wants him. And I don't know if anybody does. And I don't know if the Titans want Aaron Rodgers. I know this. There are 6 quarterback openings in the NFL. Sam Darnold represents 1 solved problem. Now, if Stafford goes, that's 7. But Stafford would solve another team's problem, so that would, again, keep you really at still 6. There aren't 5 other quarterbacks better than Aaron Rodgers. But Aaron has to wait until the Stafford drama is over, Sam Darnold to pick a team or Minnesota to pick him. And then after that, Aaron can pick a home. But I do think the fact that Aaron so quickly jumped up to, I want to be wanted, means that clearly is more important to him than the idea of having a good team. If Aaron was picking between, say, the Titans and the Steelers, then I think the good team thing might be a problem for the Titans. But with all these other teams, again, I think Aaron just wants to go somewhere at this point where he's wanted. 615-737-1025, and our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Mike from PA says, how are you shocked that Abdul Carter's shoulder is hurt when it was hurt during the playoffs? One texter said, I'm a huge Notre Dame fan, and they did, before the Notre Dame-Penn State game, talk about Abdul Carter's shoulder injury. I love you, but Abdul Carter's shoulder is not news. Do we know if he had surgery on the shoulder? Or if
I
it's
believe he did.
So he injured his shoulder against Boise State, and he had surgery.
I thought he had surgery.
I don't like that. Again, Didn't slow him down in the Notre Dame game. I thought he was still a freaking beast in the Notre Dame game. But I don't like that. I don't
know.
like
Maybe
this idea.
maybe he
injured
doesn't need
players.
surgery. Maybe it's just a rest and recover kind of thing. I mean, there's no mention of surgery per se. He's just not fully recovered from the injury he suffered. I mean, I don't know.
Again, when it comes to injuries, not all injuries are the same. Caleb Farley had a serious back injury with multiple surgeries, and people said, well, it worked for Jeffrey Simmons, who had a torn ACL. So not all injuries are built the same. And I'm not going to tell you how important the shoulder is or isn't with Abdul Carter because I don't know. Again, that's what I miss about doing the show with Floyd. Like with Floyd, he knew these injuries like
He could
in
like
and
read
out.
between
He wasn't
the
a
lines.
doctor.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like he knew what happened to Teddy Bridgewater's knee in that Viking practice just because they said that they had to rush him to the hospital. And Floyd's like, oh, yeah. I mean, clearly, the knee fell out of the socket and this, or whatever. And the toe injuries are the ones that used to really scare him. Like with someone, he broke the fifth metatarsal. I don't like that. Joey from Bellevue says the Titans still drafted Caleb Farley with the intense medical evaluation at the combine. So I believe not only did Farley have the intense medical evaluation at the combine, he had a follow-up back surgery after that. I believe he did the medical rechecks, which if you get called back to do a medical recheck at the combine, you go back to Indianapolis and you do another physical, and the Titans still took him. I'll just say this. I can't say it. But the Titans got way too loosey-goosey with their interpretation, in my opinion, with their interpretation of injury potential and the risk associated with injured players. And that is, look, Rand Carthon certainly did some of that, but that really is a John Robinson problem. I mean, the Julio Jones thing was atrocious. Farley could not believe it when they drafted Farley coming off of intense back surgery. I think it was Tim Hasselbeck said, have you ever met somebody who has a bad back?
Who used to have a bad back. Something like that.
Have you ever met someone who used to have a bad back? Because nobody recovers from a bad back. Like if you got a bad back, you got a bad back for the rest of your life.
I guess
that did bother me.
He'll be recovered enough in a month to do the pro day, Abdul Carter. So I guess the extra month is enough to feel closer to 100%.
Kinston says every team invests in injured players to a degree. It's football. Should the Eagles have not traded for A.J. Brown because he had 2 knee surgeries with the Titans? I think the knee surgeries are part of the reasons why the Titans got rid of A.J. Brown. And on top of it, A.J. Brown was not available last year in the playoffs when they got housed by Tampa Bay. So how much can somebody play? Absolutely matters. But also, you can't be the team that drafts Caleb Farley and trades for Julio Jones and then tell me that you're trading A.J. Brown because of his knees. The other side of that coin, the Snead thing, I mean, what a train wreck. What a train wreck that is. I saw somebody put out there, how confident are you that L'Jarius Snead can rebound with the Titans? 0. 615-737-1025. I think I have good news. News might be a stretch, but screw it. Good news for Titan fans who do not want Sam Darnold to be their next quarterback. We'll get to that next on the Company 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, the game streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, and we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. And I got to say this, on Friday, we ran the cuts of TD saying he was hearing some buzz that the Titans would be interested in Minnesota Vikings quarterback Sam Darnold. And the immediate reaction on Twitter was Titans fans going, oh, no, oh, God, oh, no. And I saw somebody ran a poll, I forget who, that said, of these veteran options as a Titan fan, which one do you want the most? And it was Carr, Stafford, Darnold, and Rodgers. And Darnold was in last place with like 10%. I mean, there are some Titan fans out there that do not want Sam Darnold to be their next quarterback. And I've got some good news for you. Because I spent this weekend reading the tea leaves. And if I had to put money on it today, I would say that I think Sam Darnold is going to be the next starting quarterback of the Los Angeles Rams. I cannot get over this Rams-Stafford circus. Because on one hand, the Rams were right there versus Philadelphia. And Matthew Stafford is still a very, very good NFL quarterback. The Rams made the playoffs each of the last 2 years, and the Rams went right down to the wire with contenders in each of the last 2 years. And it's not like the Rams had an entire team full of veterans, and now they're going to blow up the operation. They've got really good young players on their team. Guys like Jared Verse, Puka Nacua, Braden Fisk, Kyron Williams, etc. And the Rams are not a cheap team. And the Rams are not a poorly run operation. When I see Joe Burrow bitching about the Bengals and their inability to spend, I get that. That tracks with the Bengals. When Jerry Jones makes a comment about how I'm all in, and then he doesn't go out and sign anybody, that tracks. Jerry overpromising and under-delivering when it comes to writing a check. The Rams are also not stupid either. They know that $27 million for Stafford is borderline criminal. And they know even the $40 million average, which is what Stafford's contract is worth, the $40 million average when Tua and Trevor Lawrence are north of 50 isn't right either. And yet the Rams won't pay the Rams. And then on Saturday, when I saw that the Rams were giving Stafford permission to seek a trade, it hit me. The Rams want out of the relationship. Again, it's being treated by the media types who are only reporting what the teams tell them as if the Rams really, really want Stafford back, but we're going to give you permission to seek a trade, and if you find a team that's willing to pay you, we want to do right by you, Matthew. Again, $27 million. Do they really think there's not a team out there that's going to pay Matthew Stafford more than $27 million? They know there's a team out there that's going to pay Matthew Stafford more than $27 million. And so what the Rams are doing is they're pretending like their hands are tied. They're not. They could give Stafford a raise if they wanted to. They gave Aaron Donald a raise a couple of years ago after the Super Bowl when he threatened to retire. They gave Cooper Kupp a raise when the wide receiver market exploded. If they wanted to give Stafford a raise, they could. They gave Stafford a raise last year. If they wanted to give him a raise, they could, but they don't. And that's why they're saying, oh, well, let's go see what's out there. We don't want to give up on Matthew, but, let's go see what's out there. Sure. The Rams want the divorce, but they want Matthew Stafford to file the paperwork. When the Rams won their Super Bowl in 2021, their core was Matthew Stafford, Andrew Whitworth, who has since retired, Aaron Donald, retired, Jalen Ramsey, gone, Von Miller, gone, and Cooper Kupp will be gone. The Rams are ready to move on to the next generation. And while Matthew Stafford is good right now, he's not anybody's quarterback of the future at 37 years old. The reason the Giants want Matthew Stafford so bad is because Brian Dable and Joe Shane know if they don't win today, they're fired. The owner has already said it. And that's where Sam Darnold comes in. I know you all think that Sam Darnold sucks. Titans Twitter has made me well aware of it. I know you think he's a bum who was carried by Justin Jefferson, and I know you all completely ignore just how good he was down the stretch in Carolina in 2022 because none of you bothered to watch those games. But Sean McVay is smarter than you are. And Sean McVay sees a soon-to-be 28-year-old quarterback who can be his next Matthew Stafford, whom he'll be able to acquire because he might hit the market. He's hitting a market one way or another. He might be able to acquire, and he might be able to deal his aging quarterback to get another premium asset or two to go with the young players, Puka Nacua, Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, Cameron Curl, Kyron Williams, etc. This is such a masterclass, and the Rams are doing it right in front of our eyes. And the media doesn't report it this way because they're told not to or because they're not smart enough. But when you really look in on it, this is what the Rams are doing. They let it be known that Stafford can seek a trade. We don't want him to go, but he can go out there to go look at what his options are. Why don't the Commanders let Jaden Daniels search for a trade? So the narrative is totally spun out there as if it's Stafford who wants out. Which means that if you call the Rams, you better be willing to offer something good because they're letting it be known that, no, we don't want the divorce. Even though clearly they do. The Giants, who made the first move by hiring Kelly Stafford's brother to the coaching staff, the Giants let it be known last weekend through Adam Schefter, they're not trading the 3rd overall pick for Matthew Stafford. If you think you're getting the 3rd overall pick, it's not going to happen. Which means their 2nd round pick is probably on the table. But again, the Rams, they are so smart. The Rams have convinced everybody that they still want Stafford. We just don't know if we can make it work. I mean, we're trying to crunch the budget here, and I just don't know how we could fit in an extra $20 million for the quarterback who's underpaid by about $30 million. I just don't know how we can fit this in while we're getting rid of Cooper Kupp and after Aaron Donald retires. Really? These are the Rams. These are the people that wanted the value of their franchise to go up. So they bought the land and built a $2 billion stadium in Los Angeles with no taxpayer money. And they can't pay Matthew Stafford a couple million extra. They want to move on. They want to move on, and they want to move on to Sam Darnold. This is why the Rams are good. They're going to get a premium asset for Stafford and then go get a younger replacement who fits their system, has elite talent, NFL seasoning, and at worst is probably Jared Goff. Think about this. If the Rams used a top pick on a young quarterback, they'd have to develop him. You don't have to develop Sam Darnold. Again, Sam Darnold, elite talent. The former 3rd overall pick in the draft in a very good quarterback class. And he absolutely fits the system since Kevin O'Connell was Sean McVay's quarterback coach. It's amazing. What the Rams are looking to do is they're looking to build a new wave. I'm a Star Trek fan. What they're doing is they're moving on. Captain Kirk, Mr. Spock, Sulu, Chekhov, they're moving on to the next generation. Picard and Riker and Data and Worf and Geordi LaForge and his visor. They're moving on to the next generation. And they know Stafford at 37 is not going to be in his prime when all these core pieces, including the 1st round pick they're going to have this year in the draft, the asset that they get in return for Stafford, They know that those guys will not be in their prime while they still can win with Stafford. So what they're going to do is they're going to go get the 27-year-old who will be in his prime, who will be 31 years old, who will be 32 years old when these guys are at their peaks. Amazing work by the Rams. Amazing if they pull it off. I don't know if they will. And that's, again, why they're letting everybody know, well, we'd still like to get a deal done with Stafford. Let's say Minnesota re-signs Sam Darnold. Let's say Sam Darnold gets traded to Tennessee. Let's say something happens, they can't get him. Then they'll just give Stafford more money and move on. What a great chess play by the LA Rams. But if you hate Sam Darnold, which apparently most Titan fans do, I guess they're smarter than Sean McVay. I think that's good news for you because I think the Rams love him. And I do think Sam Darnold will end up a Ram. Just reading in between the tea leaves, I think they covet Sam Darnold and they are ready to move off of Stafford and build with Darnold as the captain of the next generation. 615-737-1025. Add that to the list. 615-737-1025. Plus, everybody likes the unknown more than they like what they actually know. And I saw a comparison for Sam Darnold this weekend that made me laugh like a hyena. We'll get to that coming up. And your phone, Stillman & Company, 1025 The Game. Okay, so let me ask a follow-up on the Darnold one here. Because I, as you noticed, I did not speak and did not get excited as you said that, which I was a little surprised by, but I didn't because I'm probably going to cut that and use it again later this week.
Wow.
So I do wonder this. Is that just based off of what you're hearing, feeling, sensing? Where's that coming from?
A combination of sensing and hearing. So there's a good chance.
That was TD on the program last week saying a combination of sensing and hearing when it came to the Titans' interest in Sam Darnold. And again, Titan Twitter went crazy over TD saying that. So the 33rd team is a media outlet / consulting firm. Like, Ian, I'm not sure between them and Sumer Sports, the analytics company that Thomas Dimitrov runs, that, Sam Brookhouse, who's their lead draft analyst, came on our show at the Super Bowl. He put out a mock draft. I'm like, well, aren't you working with these teams? So if you're working with these teams, how do you guys have mock drafts?
Interesting.
And the 33rd team's kind of the same. Like the 33rd team was hired by the Jets to help them hire Aaron Glenn and whoever the hell their general manager is. But I guess they're like a media outlet / consulting firm for the NFL.
Yeah, there's a lot of former NFLers on that kind of 33rd team situation.
So the 33rd team put out their comps over the weekend for quarterbacks. For instance, they have Jalen Milroe as Justin Fields. They have Jackson Dart as Mitch Trubisky. Their comp for Cam Ward, the great Cam Ward, whom Titans Twitter loves. Just take Cam Ward at number 1 and be done with it, Jared. Sam Darnold. I laughed my tush off when I saw that. Because I have Titans fans just tell me day in and day out that Sam Darnold sucks. We need a young quarterback, Jared. We need to go get Cam Ward. He'll be a star. Blah, blah, blah. Cam Ward, he's so great. Da-da-da. Cam Ward's comp? Sam Darnold. I love it. And again, this is the reality around the draft and the reality around draft picks that I think people have a hard time with. If the Titans were to trade back out of the number 1 pick and they were to give whomever, the Giants, the ability to take Abdul Carter, or the Giants take Cam Ward and the Browns take Abdul Carter, and Abdul Carter goes on to be Lawrence Taylor, and with the picks the Titans receive, they draft okay, the fan base won't be upset about that, about passing on Abdul Carter in order to make a trade, because of just the happiness they will have over all the extra picks that they receive. But the reality is the picks have to represent players. The unknown is always undefeated. It's why the most popular guy in town is usually the backup quarterback. In this case, I am taking a known quantity in Sam Darnold, and I am saying this is who I want to be my starting quarterback. I would love if he was just out there as a free agent and I could just sign him and I don't have to give up anything for him. But I am fine with what I know of Sam Darnold as being the guy that kind of leads the Titans out of this mountain of crap that they've dug themselves in. No, Jared, we want Mahomes. Yeah, they're not saying Cam Ward is Mahomes. They're saying he's the next Sam Darnold. Well, they don't know. Again, the undefeated. If we were to take all of the high first-round quarterbacks that were taken, and we were to throw them in a bag and shake them up, over the last 10 years. So go back to Mariota and Winston. Mariota, Winston, Goff, Wentz, Mahomes, Trubisky, Deshaun Watson, Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen. I mean, Lamar was taken in the first round. He wasn't taken very high, but fine, go ahead, throw him in there. Daniel Jones, Dwayne Haskins, Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow, Tua, Justin Herbert, Jordan Love, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Mac Jones, Justin Fields. If we were to take them and put them all in a bag and shake it up, and I were to open it, What are the odds that you would pick out Mahomes or Josh Allen? Not very high. So when you tell me that, well, they didn't know that about Mahomes, Jared, I'm like, right. So you want the exception, you don't want the rule. If Cam Ward was a slam dunk 1-1 pick, this wouldn't even be a discussion. I wouldn't be interested in Darnold either. If this were last year's draft and this were Caleb Williams, and I don't even like Caleb Williams, but if this were last year's draft and this was Caleb Williams or Drake May or Jaden Daniels, we wouldn't be having this discussion. The Tennessee Titans would be picking one of those three quarterbacks and they'd be going on with their lives and I would support it. But it's not. Blake Bedingfield at paulkaharski.com, the former director of college scouting for the Titans who convinced them to draft Derrick Henry, Blake Bedingfield has a late first-round grade on Cam Ward. Some people don't even have first-round grades. Matt Miller at ESPN doesn't even have a first-round grade on Cam Ward. And I think what the 33rd team is trying to do with, as Ian brought up, a lot of former general managers, a lot of former coaches that are working there, I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to temper your expectations. People look at Cam Ward, Mahomes, and they're like, yeah, nah, he's probably more like Sam Darnold. And you all hate Sam Darnold, and I love it. Absolutely love it. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com at 615-737-1025. Robert says, why are you so goo-goo gaga over Sam Darnold? He had one decent year, and you're ready to give him a blank check, not to mention he stunk it up in the last game he played. Well, if you were listening to Friday's show, we did not book him as a guest. Coach Les Steckel called into the program to defend Sam Darnold's performance in the playoff game against the Rams. Ian, did he not?
He did, actually.
He called in on his own volition to, as a coach, defend Sam Darnold and really put the onus on Minnesota and the scheming. So, again, put that to the side. Here's why I like Sam Darnold. Here's the why. Because I know what Sam Darnold is. I know that Sam Darnold is one of the best 32 quarterbacks in the league. I think he's one of the best 15 quarterbacks in the league. And I don't know how many times I have to say this, but Sam Darnold was very good in 2022. He was 4-2 with a team that Baker Mayfield, who, again, not a great starting quarterback, but Baker is a very good starting quarterback. Baker was 1-5 with the same team. He was 2-4. He and DJ Moore almost single-handedly got the Panthers back into the playoff race. Almost single-handedly. After they had fired Matt Rule and they had dumped Baker and they had given up on PJ Walker, and Sam Darnold almost got them back into it. So he was good in 22 and he was good in 24 and he didn't play in 23. So he didn't have one good year. I think he had two. But secondly, the reason I think Sam Darnold is a top quarterback prospect without any major injuries and all the development, all the seasoning, all the living through the ups and the downs, he's already done that somewhere else. And I'm not offering Sam Darnold $50 million a year. I'm offering him $40. And I wouldn't trade the first overall pick for Sam Darnold. But I think that Sam Darnold is better than any quarterback you might use the first overall pick on this year. And that's why I'm in on Sam Darnold for this. You know, Joe was like, I listen to this show and you make it out like Sam Darnold is the next Terry Bradshaw. I didn't say that. In fact, I have never said that Sam Darnold would be an elite franchise quarterback. Even when this time last year, I was defending Sam Darnold. I lost a Jared versus Joe over my defense of Sam Darnold last year. And then Sam went out there and had a great season and won 14 games and threw for 4,300 yards, and I was proven right. But I don't think that he's Terry Bradshaw. I don't think he's Joe Montana. I don't think he's Tom Brady. I think he's Jared Goff. And that's what I think you need. You need Jared Goff. And I don't think these quarterbacks in the draft will be as good, especially on your team. So, again, you can say whatever you want about you're just in love with. No. There's one guy out there that I think can be quarterback for this team and it not be some old pawpaw. I mean, Derek Carr is injured, old, and stinks, and you guys like him more than Darnold. I don't get it. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. But again, the good news, I think the Rams are wanting to move off of Stafford to move to Darnold. And I got a thought on that next, which also makes me laugh, and more of your phones. Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 the game. And let me tell all the fine folks, want to win tickets to a Preds game? Listen to Robbie and Rex Road tomorrow morning for Preds Pick to Click. All you have to do is guess a Preds goal scorer, and if they put the puck in the back of the net, you win. So be listening tomorrow morning for the cue to call on Robbie and Rex Road.
Let's just live in the Stafford of it for a moment. You're headed to Indy.
Yeah.
What is going on with Stafford and the Rams?
The Rams and Stafford are trying to figure out a new contract, and it's still possible they do and that they keep him there. But if they don't, then I believe that they will trade him, and there are teams that are going to be interested. And, you know, Darnold would be one of the possible pivots if they could get a deal done with Minnesota, or if Minnesota lets Sam Darnold hit the open market. So we're getting to Indy today. A lot of the front office people are getting there today. Tomorrow, Matthew Stafford. This dragged all through the offseason last year. I don't get the impression that the Rams want that to happen again. I think they'd like an answer sooner rather than later, i.e. sometime in the next couple of days, so they can figure out what their quarterback plan is if it's not Stafford. So this is something you could see new. You can't officially do a trade until March 12th when the league year starts, but you know, you could agree to the parameters of a trade, and I wouldn't be surprised if there was news on that at some point.
There you go. That was Graziano this morning talking about the Stafford and Rams situation. You heard right there, Graziano was like, I think the Rams would like a resolution to this sooner rather than later. What is he talking about? The Rams control Stafford. Like, if they want, Stafford wants a raise. You want to end this? Here's $20 million. Here you go. Done. Ian, do I need to do anything more? I just gave Stafford a $20 million raise. You think he's happy?
Yep.
Okay. So what are we talking about here? And again, I'm reading the tea leaves. I think the Rams want Sam Darnold. I think they think that there is still meat on the bone with Stafford. They can still get something good in return. So you trade Stafford, you get something good in return. You sign Sam Darnold, and now you've moved to Stafford's younger replacement. And unlike Titans Twitter, the Rams actually think Darnold is good. And I want you to think about this for a second. The 12% of you that want Sam Darnold, I should say the 88% of you that don't want Sam Darnold, or whatever it may be, that want Aaron Rodgers or injured Derek Carr. But I want you to think about it like this. Kevin O'Connell, pretty good coach, right? Knows a thing or two about quarterbacks. Likes Darnold. Kyle Shanahan, pretty good coach, right? Knows a thing or two about quarterbacks. Likes Darnold. And if the Rams get him, Sean McVay, pretty good coach, right? So I can't celebrate this yet. But if I am right, and the Rams do want to move on from Stafford to Darnold, I just threw my pen in the air. If I am right, and the Rams want to move on from Stafford to Darnold, I will laugh my ass off at every single one of you that were like, oh, he sucks. Uh-huh. So all you Titan fans don't like Sam Darnold, but I guess you guys know more than Kyle Shanahan and Kevin O'Connell and Sean McVay and everybody else.
What are the chances you think the Rams are letting Stafford do this to get a better feel for a perhaps restructured contract?
I don't think they're doing that because I think there's money out there for Stafford. Like, I don't think the Giants would not, again, let's say $55 million. I think the Giants would write a check for $55 million. Jerry Jones is the cheapest a-hole in the NFL. Right? Like, I mean, he's not the cheapest. Then the Brown family that owns the Bengals are up there. And who else is super cheap? I mean, Kraft is secretly cheap, but Jerry is cheap. Jerry is paying Dak Prescott $60 million a year for one main reason. Dak Prescott, at the end of his previous contract, could not be franchise tagged. That was the deal they made when they signed the last contract after Dak had been tagged. So Jerry had no recourse. If Dak hit the market, Jerry would have been beholden to the best offer for Dak. So they gave Dak $60 million. And I don't think it was a bad decision on their part to give Dak that money. But they gave Dak $60 million because they knew if we don't give Dak $60 million, we're going to be bidding against the Steelers and the Titans and the Giants and all these teams that don't have quarterbacks that are hoping that Will Levis or Daniel Jones will work out. So I think the money's out there for Stafford. I think what they're doing is they're going to see what Minnesota does with Darnold. I think it is, if we move off of Stafford, we're moving off of Stafford because of who we want to move on to. Like, I don't think the Indianapolis Colts would have released Peyton Manning if they weren't going to draft Andrew Luck. So you have to wait to see what Minnesota does first. And if Minnesota's convinced we're keeping Darnold, then there's nothing they can do about it. And so, okay, well, give Sam a raise. we'll give Stafford a raise. But I'm convinced the Rams like him. I mean, there was a report that came out during the season when they played in October on Thursday Night Football that the Rams had entertained the idea of a 1-for-1 swap, Darnold for Stafford. So I think they've liked him for a long time. Belichick took a pot shot at the Jets on the McAfee show this year when he said, well, everybody knew Sam Darnold was good except for the Jets. As if it was like, they're stupid, but everybody knows Darnold's good. Except Titan Twitter. Let's go to Andawan, who's up next here on our program, and our phone lines are by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Andawan, go ahead.
Hi, Jared. Thank you for taking my call. So I've heard this talked about enough. Free agency comes before the draft. So if the Titans get a free agent quarterback and they meet all these other teams thinking that they're going to draft a quarterback, and the Titans get a free agent quarterback before the draft, wouldn't teams like the Giants and Jets and Raiders even not have to worry about the Titans picking a quarterback 1 overall, and then that hurts their chances of trading? I'll hang up and listen.
Yeah, so it's not so much about the Titans taking the quarterback. If the Titans wanted to take the quarterback, then there's nothing you could do to get the pick. If Joe Burrow was sitting out there, teams could offer 6 first-round picks, and you're not going to say yes. The reason that the Titans signing a quarterback actually would heat up the market for the first pick is because teams would know, well, Tennessee's not going to take a quarterback, but we don't want Tennessee to deal with anybody else who might take the quarterback ahead of us. So let's use the Giants as the example. Everybody acts like there are 2 quarterbacks in this class, Ward and Sanders. My guess is teams have them graded differently on the board. I highly doubt it's like Ward or Sanders, whatever, we're fine. I think they like one more than the other. Probably every other team probably feels the same way. Well, if the Titans were to sign Sam Darnold in unrestricted free agency, then the Giants at 3 would not have to worry about the Titans taking the quarterback that they like. But they would have to worry about Cleveland. And they would have to worry about the Jets behind them. And they would have to worry about the Raiders. The Titans had drafted Marcus Mariota with the 2nd overall pick, had the first pick in 2016, and traded out of it and still got a haul. Not because the Rams at 15 were afraid Tennessee might take the quarterback we want, but because of somebody else taking the quarterback that they want. 615-737-1025. We're back to your phones on this. 615-737-1025. And I did hear a report from Jeremy Fowler as far as the Vikings are concerned on the Darnold front. And I'm not sure, and he's not the first person I've heard say something like this. I'm not sure this line of thinking actually makes any sense. We'll hit that next. And your phone. Stillman & Company, 1025 The Game.
So the NFL franchise tag window opened on Tuesday. What are you hearing about the potential possibility of Sam Darnold staying in Minnesota?
Yeah, well, I'm told that the Minnesota Vikings are open to doing a deal with Sam Darnold. People I've talked to around the league believe that the franchise tag is not the likeliest path that Minnesota would take. That's a high number of around $40 million. So Minnesota's stance seems to be that they're not going to mortgage the future for Sam Darnold. If he's getting major bank with another team somewhere else, they probably won't mortgage their future in that regard, but they're certainly open to having him back. They loved having him. What was made clear to me, though, is J.J. McCarthy is the franchise quarterback at some point, whether that's 6 months from now, 12 months, 18 months. They have not made that firm determination yet, but he will be the guy. So whoever steps in this year is essentially a bridge quarterback. Daniel Jones could make some sense. I'm told that he's still on the table as an option. He was in the building last year. He would be a cheaper alternative to Sam Darnold.
Okay, there you go. That was Fowler saying the franchise tag might be a little too much as far as the money. They like Darnold. They like to have Darnold around. But what was the one thing that he kind of put his foot down and said? He said they have made it clear that J.J. McCarthy is the franchise quarterback at some point of the Minnesota Vikings. Wow. Breaking news. The Minnesota Vikings used the 10th overall pick on a quarterback last year, and at some point they want him to be the franchise quarterback. No duh. And if that is in fact true, which I think it probably is, then it limits the Vikings' options. Because I heard Fowler say in that cut something that Albert Breer brought up to us at the Super Bowl, which is, they'd like to sign Sam Darnold to an extension, but they want a Baker Mayfield extension at $30 million a year. They don't want to go into the $40 million range. Well, I hate to break it to you, but 6 teams right now don't have quarterbacks. Like the Steelers don't have a quarterback. So when it comes to, well, we'd like you at $30 million, that ain't going to work. Because somebody's going to offer $40 million or somebody's going to offer $50 million. And again, what would you do? So if he's right, if J.J. McCarthy is their future, then their options are simple. Number one, they let Darnold walk. Number two, they tag Darnold and trade him. And then the most extreme option, I think, would be 3, tag Darnold, play him, and sit J.J. on the bench. But J.J. McCarthy, if he is their future and they're not going to trade him to somebody else, has to be their starting quarterback by 2026. Because after the 2026 season, they have to make a call on the 5th-year option. So they have to know if he's their quarterback of the future or not by the end of the 2026 season. That completely takes this idea of signing Sam Darnold to an extension off the table as far as Minnesota's concerned. And yet I keep hearing the media heads saying that Minnesota would like to sign him to an extension. Not too big of a contract, but they'd like to sign him to an extension. Sorry, that's not how this works. The market is the market. And the market this year is 6 teams, don't have quarterbacks, maybe 2 guys in the draft. Somebody will give Sam Darnold a starter's contract that will essentially guarantee him $100 million. So either you let him walk and you turn it over to JJ, or you tag and trade him and you turn it over to JJ, or if you really want to, you can have JJ sit for another year. But this idea that they might sign Darnold to an extension, bullcrap. It ain't happening. Back to your phones. Craig says, I like Sam Darnold, and I agree with you about him being the best option. Here is my question. How do the Titans get the same production out of him with no offensive line and no elite wide receivers? Well, Mike Morganzi's only job this year isn't to just go get a quarterback. It is to build a football team. So if the Titans were to, let's say, sign Sam Darnold on the unrestricted free agent market, that doesn't mean that they don't sign anybody else and they don't draft anybody else. They're going to need a right guard. I think they're going to need a left tackle, and I would put Latham at right tackle. Right tackle at 7 overall, not really worth it, but, previous regime, I guess, as far as I'm told. But I would sign Alaric Jackson of the Rams to play left tackle. I'd sign Sam Darnold, and then I'd probably wait until the second month of free agency, and then I'd start signing guys before the draft. to very low contracts just to plug holes. And then I'd take Abdul Carter, put him at pass rusher, and I'd probably go get some linemen as well in the draft, and on we go. But Calvin Ridley's a 1,000-yard receiver. Like, that's nothing to scoff at. When you talk about, like, there's nobody good, you're supposed to go get them. One texter into the text line says, I think people's opinions are skewed because you spent the last year taking a Darnold victory lap. Even though he's probably the best option, you want him here. So I think it has more to do with you than it does with Sam Darnold. You don't like talking about other teams, but you will spend 15 segments taking victory laps. No, the reason we talk about Sam Darnold all the time is because you need a quarterback, and he's the only guy out there. You know what's funny is before the 2023 season, we did one of our early renditions of the quarterback carousel. And Ian, I think on Friday, we'll probably do our quarterback carousel 2.0.
Okay.
But our quarterback carousel, we did at one point, I had Baker Mayfield going to the Atlanta Falcons. And somebody that I think knows Arthur Smith pretty well, when Arthur was the head coach, said, I don't think Arthur would like Baker Mayfield. I said, well, you better do something. I mean, you got to have an insurance policy for Desmond Ridder. And at that point, I pivoted to Darnold because I was like, well, he's probably more of a backup the way people consider it than Baker, even though I think that Darnold is better than Baker. I guess fine. If the personality doesn't work, then go to Darnold. And it wasn't that I was obsessed with Darnold or obsessed with Baker. It was, again, they needed, in my opinion, a real backup quarterback in case Ridder failed that they could turn to. But they didn't do it. They got Taylor Heineke. That blew up in Arthur's face and he got fired. So come on now. This idea of like, you're only talking about Sam Darnold because you were right about him last year is not the truth. We've talked about Derek Carr. I think Derek Carr is old. I think he's injured, and every coach he's ever had has been fired, including Dennis Allen, who has gotten fired twice. Sam Darnold's last coach just won Coach of the Year. See the difference? We've talked about Stafford. We talked earlier today about Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I like Mac Jones better than I like a lot of these other guys out there, but you don't hear me talking about Mac every day. Why? Because I don't think it's realistic, and I don't think he's in the best interest of the team. One texter says, the Reddit nerds and Tennessee Vols fans are definitely the only Darnold haters because it would be admitting that you, Jared Stillman, were right. I'm not going to say that. You said that, not me. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Again, even if you're a Titan fan, though, I don't think it's anything you have to worry about. Because I think the Rams are going to dump Stafford, or they're trying to dump Stafford to go get Darnold. Because I think Sean McVay knows football, and I think Sean McVay knows that Sam Darnold can play quarterback. Coming up next, Shedeur Sanders has decided not to compete this week at the Combine, even though he is, I think, on nobody's board at 1-1, which I'm a little surprised by. But there's one thing when it comes to Shedeur Sanders that I can't get over. And it does have to do with his last name. We'll get to that next. I'm going to accompany 102.5 The Game. Sanders, I do not care that Deion Sanders is his father. The only thing I care about when it comes to Deion Sanders is if I draft Shedeur Sanders and things don't go well, which often happens with young quarterbacks, am I going to have to deal with what Deion Sanders says in the media? Oh, Jared, that's not fair. Really? So if Shedeur Sanders taps out of a game like Anthony Richardson did, or gets benched like Bryce Young did, you think Deion is just going to sit there in Boulder and say, well, I'm sure Coach Callahan has a plan for him? So come on now. But when it comes to Shedeur, I feel like I hold him to the same standards that I hold any other player, especially any other player that we're talking about using the number one pick on and becoming my team's franchise quarterback. When you are a good franchise quarterback, you become the single most important part of a multi-billion-dollar corporation. You are the most irreplaceable employee. Don't believe me? Who do you think gets paid the most in Kansas City? It ain't Andy Reid. Tom Brady, for years, made us think that the Patriots were smarter, tougher, better run, better operated, because they kept winning. Why they keep winning? Because they had Tom Brady. And so the way I look at it is, if you're going to be the face of my operation, if you're going to be the single most important person, you have to give me a reason as to why. Why should you be that guy? And today the news came out, Shedeur Sanders has decided not to throw at the combine. Again, he's not going to compete this week to prove to me that he deserves to be the number one overall pick in the draft. And some people will say, well, Jared, he doesn't have anything to prove. Ian Rappaport's statement said he's going to let the film do all the talking. You mean the film of one win in 2 years at Colorado against a ranked team? He beat number 17 TCU 45-42. It should be noted TCU went on to finish 5-7 that year. Every other top opponent he played, he lost to. So if we're looking at Shedeur Sanders' college resume, it is beating up on a lot of the sisters of the poor of the Pac-12 before it dispersed, and what I call the ACC of the West, the Big 12. Shedeur Sanders played two ranked teams this year. They lost number 18 K-State, and they lost number 17 BYU. That's it. So, again, if your resume in college does not say top prospect, then don't you need to show me the skills? And every time I complain about Shedeur Sanders not showing us the skills or not showing us in his college performance that he's worthy of elevating my team to the top of the NFL when he couldn't do it in college, it's always, oh, Jared, you're not being fair. That's not right. When I bring up, again, the potential pitfalls, like Deion Sanders sticking his nose in the Titans business, oh, Jared, that's not fair. And I'm starting to wonder, so what does Shedeur Sanders have to do to earn it? What does he have to do to prove that he is capable of being a franchise quarterback in the NFL? And I looked at all the boards, and I saw Mike Renner at CBS, for instance, had Shedeur ranked 40th. Trevor Sikkema at the Super Bowl came on our show from Pro Football Focus. He's their lead draft analyst. He said low second-round grade on Shedeur Sanders, high third-round grade. So what is it that Shedeur Sanders has done that all of a sudden deserves talk of 1-1? And if I question it by the fact that he didn't beat anybody good at Colorado, or I question it by the fact that he's not competing at the combine because he might be afraid of Tyler Shuck outshining him, why am I interested in taking him number one? Oh, Jared, you are a hater. You don't understand. You are this. You are that. And I'm trying to figure out why I feel like I'm the only person that says these things. Like I'm the only person who's super skeptical of Shedeur Sanders. And then it hit me. Louis Riddick was on First Take, and they were having a discussion about Cam Ward. And this was last week when Cam Ward came out and said, if you don't take me, you will regret it. You'll have to play me for the rest of my career. And of course, like they do on First Take, it's, Stephen A., what do you think? Louis Riddick, what do you think? Mad Dog, what do you think? And finally, Mad Dog put Louis Riddick on the spot. And listen to this question. Dog asks him, and listen to how quickly Louis Riddick covers his tush because he doesn't want Deion Sanders mad at him.
Right now, I have Cam number 1.
Wow. And if you were Tennessee that needs a quarterback, you would run
if I was picking right now, and I talked to all these guys, and look, everybody, and everybody knows how much I love Deion Sanders, and that is my guy. And he has supported me from the time we were players to now.
You're going to take Ward first.
I would objectively take Cam Ward first.
Good answer.
I mean, oh my God, it's like it hurt Louis Riddick to say, look, I wouldn't take Deion Sanders' son first. Deion, please forgive me. Please forgive me. I know I said I wouldn't take your son first, even though he only beat one ranked opponent in his career in college, and that team ended up, the ranked team he beat finished 5-7, but please don't smite me, Prime. I think everybody in the media is afraid of getting on Deion Sanders' bad side. And that's why Shedeur has artificially elevated to this QB2. Why does Louis Riddick have to praise Deion and how much Deion meant to me when saying he'd take Cam Ward number 1? Does that mean that everybody else's son who's in the draft, you hate that guy? Like Solomon Wilcots came on the show at the Super Bowl, and I asked if Deion would be a distraction. By the way, does Kenny Dillingham ever just opine on the news of the day? No, Deion does. And Solomon got like legitimately upset about it. And so I feel like when it comes to Shedeur Sanders, he has been elevated because people in the media are either friends with Deion Sanders, like Stephen A. Smith, like Shannon Sharp, like Michael Irvin, like those guys. They're friends with Deion, like Louis Riddick. And so they're like, oh, yeah, Shedeur, he's really, really good. Or they're afraid of pissing Deion off, just like Tim McCarver did 30 years ago. Well, that doesn't matter to me. Again, my goal in all of this is to figure out who the best option at quarterback for the Titans is, not what will make Deion Sanders happy. And so I want to seriously know when it comes to, because I saw Greg Cosell went on Ross Tucker's podcast and said the tape says Tyler Shuck is QB2, which is amazing to me because I watched Tyler Shuck play every game at Louisville, and he's probably, in my opinion, has the ceiling of an NFL backup. I talked to a former general manager. I said, do you like either of these two quarterbacks? And the former general manager said, kind of like Ward. Didn't mention Sanders at all. Again, Renner's got him 40th. Late second round grade, early third for Trevor Sikkema. No first round grades on either of the quarterbacks, according to ESPN's Matt Miller. And yet, everybody tells me that I have to view Shedeur Sanders like a top prospect. Everybody tells me that I have to overlook the fact that he didn't win anything in college, even though he was throwing to the Heisman Trophy winner. Everybody tells me that I shouldn't be upset that he's not competing at the combine to show me that he's worthy of a top pick. And nobody has an explanation as to why it is I should just blindly trust everybody that, oh yeah, Shedeur Sanders, he's legit. I mean, don't you think if he was legit, he would have scored more than 16 points against number 23 UCLA? Don't you think if he was a huge superstar, they would have scored more than 14 points in a bowl game to BYU? Don't you think if he had so much talent that he could be the number 1 pick of my team, that he'd go to the combine and show it? But I guess not. I guess I just have to take your word for it. I just have to take your word for it that he's going to be great. because everybody else on TV is afraid to piss off Dion, or they're buddies with Dion, and so they're taking his word for it. But what has he done that says number one pick? That's all I'm asking. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. So apparently there's one NFL team that is picking very high in the NFL draft that apparently already likes Shedeur Sanders. Not buying it. We'll get to that next. I'm going to company 125 the game.
When the Combine workouts begin later this week, quarterback Shedeur Sanders will not be working out. He's going to the Combine to go through the interview process. Look, there are guys who strategically decide every year that it makes no sense to go and throw or do anything. Don't run, don't jump, don't do anything. The hay's in the barn. The film is locked. If you want to meet me, you want to talk to me, that's great, but I'm not going to work out. And I fully support it. I get mad when media gets mad at the fact that you're not entertaining us. Why don't you go out and throw? We want to be entertained.
Yeah.
Let the guy make his decision.
Right.
He makes the decision that's right for him, and he's making the decision that's right for him, and I say go for it.
Media, do not demand that guys compete. I'm fine with that. But again, to me, when I am considering drafting Shedeur Sanders number 1 overall, that's a huge knock that he didn't compete at the combine. That does matter to me. But maybe it doesn't matter to the New York Football Giants. Because according to Jordan Reynon, who covers the Giants for ESPN in the same capacity that TD covers the Titans for ESPN, according to Jordan Reynon, the Giants want Shedeur Sanders. Quote, multiple league insiders are convinced the Giants have their sights set on Sanders, but that would not necessarily keep the team from targeting a more experienced option at the position. The Giants had Super Bowl winning quarterback Kurt Warner as their starter when they drafted Eli Manning with the number 1 pick. So again, that back half of that is all just a history lesson, which who cares about? The news nugget in that is multiple league insiders are convinced the Giants have their sights set on Sanders. Translation to me, they want Cam Ward. That's what that means to me. Now, I don't know if Jordan Reynon is in cahoots with the Giants, like if he's doing them a solid. I don't even know what the hell this means. Multiple league insiders. Ian, what qualifies somebody as a league insider in this regard that ESPN would publish it? Are we talking about people inside the league? Are we talking about, I talked to Schefter and Fowler and Graziano because they're technically insiders.
No, that doesn't work. No, it has to be somebody who works in the league office or something like that. Yeah, or the Giants or something.
Right. Like if I was talking to, let's say, Ryan Cowden, who was with the Giants last year, but is now with the Patriots, who is an executive in New England, like that counts as a league insider. So according to multiple league insiders.
Yeah, that's a weird phrase there.
The translation to me is they want Cam Ward. And you're going to say, well, wait a minute. How could you read they want Shedeur Sanders and then read that as they want Cam Ward? Do you guys remember the Will Levis Colts stuff during the 2023 draft? Every single ESPN reporter was reporting that Indy was just enamored with Will Levis. I mean, every single mock draft, because of all the smoke surrounding Will Levis to the Colts, had the Colts drafting Will Levis. I laughed my ass off because about a year ago, I was looking for a cut after the draft was over, or I was looking for a cut and during one of the press conferences where Chris Ballard said that they would have drafted Will Levis if they didn't draft Anthony Richardson. It was actually Irsay who said it, not Ballard. But so I did a Twitter search and I searched Ballard Levis draft. And the first thing that came up was a Titan fan. And again, this was about 6 months prior when he tweeted this about, Chris Ballard is so stupid that he's going to draft Will Levis. And the guy's picture was of Will Levis in an Oiler uniform because he's obviously a Titan fan. So remember all of the smoke that surrounded the Colts and Levis. Todd McShay wrote before the draft, if Indy doesn't take Will Levis at number 4, or if Will Levis isn't there, he wrote, I don't know what Indy's going to do. And I kept saying, they're going to take Richardson. And everyone kept saying, well, wait a minute. What do you mean? They love Levis. Right. They're telling everybody that they love Levis because they don't. They're telling everyone they love Levis because they don't want anybody to know we love the other guy and we don't want them to jump us in order to take that guy. So when the Giants are telling everybody, we love Shedeur, which is how I translate this, what it means to me is we love Cam Ward. That's what it means. So when I see that, I think to myself, you guys like Cam Ward, eh? And here's another reason why you put that out. We don't know what the Giants' plans are at quarterback as far as the Stafford stuff is concerned or signing somebody or whatever. But the Titans are going to want to trade down. They've already made that abundantly clear. And so when they go to the Giants and they say, hey, we saw that you guys would be interested in the Sanders kid, now it starts the conversation. But the Giants aren't playing their card, which is we love Cam Ward or we want Cam Ward. My guess is all of these draft guys are probably more right than the draft media wants to let on. So the NFL media says, oh, these guys will go in the top 5 picks. And the draft media is telling us a second round grade for Sanders. My guess is Ward does have a first round grade, and the Giants know it. So they know they're picking the 9th best player with the 3rd pick, but that's what they want to do. And if I were the Titans, I would operate like I've got Cam Ward and you want him. So what will you give me for Cam Ward? But when the local reporter says multiple league insiders are convinced the Giants have their sights on Sanders, that tells me they're interested in Ward. That's what happens this time of the year. 615-737-1025 and our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. One texter into the text line says, I hope Shedeur Sanders not throwing allows for a Jackson Dart or a Kyle McCord to light it up and gain ground on him. I honestly do not think those 3 are that far apart. So Tim Hasselbeck, I want to play this Tim Hasselbeck cut because Tim was on ESPN this morning, and I guess they were talking about some kind of hypothetical trade from the Raiders to moving up to go get Shedeur Sanders. And listen to Tim's take on this idea of the Raiders moving up from 6 in order to try to land Shedeur Sanders. And listen to where Tim really views him compared to the other quarterbacks that are behind him.
Tim, we'll dive into this deeply when you're up here this week. What do you think of this on first blush?
Well, I don't like it because of the amount that it would take to move up. A lot of people are saying that he could end up being number 1 overall. To move that much is way too much. Even if you're moving 2 or 3 spots up, I think you're giving up too much. And I don't really think that the delta between Shedeur and this next group of quarterbacks, Tyler Shuck, Kyle McCord, Jackson Dart, I don't think it's going to be that significant through the evaluation process for everybody. So I think giving up so much to move just a few spots in the first round when you really don't know, to me, it just doesn't feel like it's worth it.
I remember last year when we were having the discussion of what if Drake May falls to 7? And again, Titans Twitter lost their minds and they kept saying, oh God, why would we take Drake May when we have Will Levis? But I remember Tim Hasselbeck said, Caroline asked him, hey, if Drake May falls to 7, what do you do? And Tim goes, you take him. But if Drake May falls to the 7th pick, you take him, period. And I'll never forget what Willie said that day when they were talking about, Drake May falling in the draft and how high Drake May is going to go and all of this stuff. And Willie goes, I respect Tim's opinion on this more than Mel Kiper's. And I laughed out loud. Tim just told you, he doesn't think the difference between Shedeur Sanders and Tyler Shuck, Kyle McCord, and who was the third one he mentioned? I think it was Jackson Dart. He doesn't think that the difference between Shedeur and that guy's is that big that you have to move off your spot in order to go get Shedeur Sanders. Dane Brugler replied to a tweet about how the reason that Shedeur is not going to throw at the combine is probably because he doesn't want to be shown up by his peers doing the exact same thing at the exact same time as him. His last name is Sanders, which starts with an S. So he would be throwing before Tyler Shuck, whose last name also starts with an S. Well, some people think Tyler Shuck's better than Shedeur Sanders. I'm not one of them, but some people think that. So I think there is something to this when it comes to, hey, I hope him not throwing at the combine allows one of these other guys to explode. It might. And that's the risk he's running. And again, my question is, do you want to bet on yourself? Or do you not? And he is voting not to bet on himself. C.J. Stroud locked down the number 2 pick with his workout. And it led to this big discussion about going number 1. So if you've got the goods, go compete. But I do think it may help somebody else out. Again, J.J. McCarthy was the darling of the combine last year and went with the 10th overall pick. More your phones. 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in on this. Again, Shedeur Sanders out as far as throwing at the combine is concerned. He will meet with the teams. Let me just say, be very, very careful when it comes to, well, I heard so-and-so met with this team and the meetings went well. Again, this time of the year, if you're hearing something, there's a reason why. 615-737-1025, Stillman & Company, 1025, 106 for the game. Trevor Sycamore with his Pro Football Focus. You said you have a second-round grade on Ward. Where are you on Sanders?
So Sanders, I'm a little bit lower on. I have a late second, early third round grade is what I have for Sanders. So and again, like it's kind of like elicits that reaction, but it's somewhere around. So my comp for Shedeur Sanders that I really love is Teddy Bridgewater. But I think stylistically they're, to me, such similar quarterbacks. Just the arm talent, okay, it's not the biggest arm in the world, probably adequate for the NFL level, so it's fine. But you got to think about, you got to be a better anticipator to make sure that it works, and Teddy Bridgewater kind of was. I think people forget about how good Teddy Bridgewater was when he was at Louisville and when he played for the Vikings before the leg injury. He was a different quarterback, and I think that he was ascending to be a pretty good starting quarterback.
There you go. That was Trevor Sycamore at the draft saying, I got a second, third round grade on Shedeur Sanders. I do want to get to your phones at 615-737-1025, but I also want to get to this. Rich Gannon on Sirius XM, they were talking about the Titans quarterback situation, and Rich said something that I hadn't thought about much of, and it kind of popped into my head. And again, when it comes to Shedeur, like, I have leadership questions. Again, this is a guy who never beat a ranked team except for one time in college. And we all saw him throw the mouthpiece of the Arizona State kid into the stands. We all saw him, putting his wrist in the face of the Colorado State player. We saw the blow up with Cam Newton. This is what Rich Gannon said when they were talking about the Titans and the quarterback position that I guess I hadn't really thought about much when it comes to not only do the Titans need a good quarterback, they need a good leader. Here's what Rich Gannon said on Sirius XM NFL Radio.
I have to, regardless of whether it's a veteran player or it's someone in the draft, it's got to be someone that I know that shares some of my same core values when it comes to, playing football and what it takes. And I think, Bruce, to me, the physical and mental toughness is going to be really important because you're going to a team that hasn't been very good. They're 3-14. There's been a lot of change there. They fired the head coach a couple of years ago. They just fired the general manager. And then you have to look at, I think the other thing you need to look at, Bruce, if you're Berganzi and you're Callahan, what is the makeup of our locker room look like? And how can we improve that? Like, not just players, not just, we need, like, our biggest needs are quarterback, wide receiver. We need an edge rusher. We need another offensive tackle. We need a safety. I get that. But do we have the culture and the environment and the toughness and the leadership in that locker room? I'd start there.
That's actually a really good point. Again, the captains for last year, Kenneth Murray, Jeffrey Simmons, Will Levis, Lloyd Cushenberry, and Morgan Cox. And even at the time when the Titans announced them as the team captains, it kind of felt to me like total wishful thinking. The inside linebacker who wears the green dot, the highest paid player, the center, and the quarterback. Now, ultimately, Ernest Jones, I think, was the one that was wearing the green dot, and Ernest Jones was a much better player than Kenneth Murray. But when I think leaders, don't necessarily think of Kenneth Murray. Simmons is not a leader. He's a good player, but they need real leaders on this team in order to push Simmons down the pecking order where he belongs. And again, that's why I keep bringing up Sam Darnold, who, I don't know if you saw the video, but when Minnesota beat Green Bay, the entire locker room rallied around him. And then that takes me back to Shedeur Sanders. Is he really that kind of leader? And we've kind of skipped over this because the Titans have so many holes on their team and so many issues that need to be fixed, but they do need a leadership group of players on this team as they've moved past Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, and Kevin Byard. And that was never important to Rand Carthon. He just thought, my guys will do it. But no, it is important. 615-737-1025 on our program, and our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. One texter says, I would not draft Shedeur Sanders simply because of the drama his father would bring. So I think these are one of the things that nobody on TV would ever say. Like, could you imagine going on First Take? All right, First Take welcomes Jared Stillman to the program. So it's me, Stephen A. Smith, and Shannon Sharp. And the question is, should Tennessee take Shedeur Sanders number 1? And I said, guys, I'm worried about the Dion effect. I'm worried what's going to happen when this team doesn't play well and Shedeur doesn't play well. And if the team doesn't play well and nobody watches, everyone just assumes the quarterback sucks, and how Deion is going to handle that. Because what I know of Deion Sanders is it's never his fault, and he's never in the wrong. And Shedeur is an extension of Deion. So if Shedeur Sanders, if something happens to him, like happened to Will Levis last year, like happened to Bryce Young, like happened to Anthony Richardson, like happened to Kenny Pickett, like happened to a lot of these guys, is Deion in Boulder going to sit there and talk about how he's more worried about getting ready for the Oklahoma State game? Or is Deion going to get out there and start criticizing the coach? And again, I don't think that they'd ever talk about this on TV, because if I said that with Stephen A. and Shannon there, they'd go ballistic. But I absolutely think the Deion effect is something that is being talked about behind the scenes for these teams. They are talking about, what would it be like if we bring Shedeur in? What would it be like as far as Deion is concerned? One texter says the combine is not a competition. Well, why do they have a leaderboard? Like when it says, here are the fastest 40 times, it's the guy from Texas, the guy from Oklahoma, the guy from Oregon, the guy from Ohio State. I mean, aren't they running against each other? Isn't that a competition? I mean, nobody's guarding anybody at the combine, but nobody guards anybody at the Olympics either. Isn't that a competition? Figure skating. You go out there by yourself and twirl around for 10 minutes, and they play the music from Peter Pan, and you do the triple axel, and aren't you competing against other people? The combine is absolutely a competition. And it's a competition Shedeur Sanders isn't interested in competing. Let's go to Adam in Portland, who is up next on Shedeur Sanders. Thank you for calling the show. Go ahead.
I don't really care about what everybody else is saying about him as much as I care about, we need an alpha male in the room. And that what we ran into this year when our team sucked is that you could look around and go, we don't have anybody picking this team up. We don't have any alpha. I don't think that's Shedeur. It might be Cam. I don't know, but I definitely don't think it's Darnold. Can you tell me that Darnold is a leader? Because I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying I don't look at him and go, that dude's going to be the alpha that everybody's going to look at and try to gravitate towards, and he's going to pick up and make them winners. Because Mariota
did you see the video
I think that was
when Sam Darnold, Adam, did you see the video after the Green Bay victory in December when Sam Darnold was doing his press conference? So everybody was assembled in the locker room, and the entire Vikings locker room waited for Sam Darnold to come in. And when he came in, they all went ballistic, and they all started throwing water and lifting him up. And Kevin O'Connell was just standing off to the side with a big smile on his face and his arms crossed.
Yeah, I saw the video.
Isn't that a leader?
I mean, I don't know.
When everybody on the team is so happy for your success that they all just want to lift you up on their shoulders.
Yeah, but is that like that could be the case, Jared? I'm not saying it's not, but it could also be situationally like, hey, you sucked real bad, and now you're awesome, and we want to like tell you that we acknowledge that. Like, it could be a number of reasons. He may not be the same dude in Tennessee. I hope he is if we get him, but I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like,
here's what I would say with Sam Darnold.
2 weeks.
Outside of the one comment, thank you, Adam. Outside of the one comment that NFL Films ran, which they should not have run. You know, the way that the mic'd up stuff works is that you have a representative from NFL Films there who they say, okay, we got this stuff mic'd up. Can we run it on the broadcast? And they either give the thumbs up or the thumbs down. And the Sam Darnold seeing those things normally should have been, look, I think it was cool to see, but the way that they do it at the NFL level is that's not something that they air on television. But outside of that, can you think of one thing that Sam Darnold has said or done in his entire 8-year career? Again, this guy was the quarterback of the Jets. If you walk into it and step in it in New York, everybody knows about it. Everybody knows about Zach Wilson banging his mom's friend Everybody knows about Zach Wilson saying that it wasn't his fault that they lost a game. Everybody remembers that stuff. Everybody remembers everything Aaron Rodgers did. To me, if you can manage New York and you can manage tough times in New York and come out of it unscathed, there's something to you. And that's the same way I feel about Daniel Jones, because when they played here in 2022, I remember walking out of the stadium saying, Daniel Jones is tough. I don't think he's very good, but he is freaking tough. And he played his heart out in that game. They won because Randy Bullock missed a field goal, but Daniel Jones played his heart out in that game. And so if you can go through New York and not cause problems, I think you can be a leader of quarterback. And again, go back to that Green Bay video. That to me is a team that loves its quarterback. Let's go to Chuck, who's up next on Shedeur Sanders. Thank you for calling the program and thank you for waiting. Chuck, go ahead.
Jared, how's it going today?
Good.
Good. Hey, Jared, the top 3 quarterbacks last year did not throw at the combine. It's not a big deal. He's going to throw at his pro day. But I don't understand, why don't you say anything about Cam Ward? I don't hear anything about I think you're fixated because Deion poured that thing over Tim McCarver's head years ago. And like you said, you don't want the clown show down here, which I know Ty's not going to take him anyway. But I'm just saying, I don't know or hear anything about Cam Ward, his parents. I don't hear anything about the kid. You never talk about him. He's supposed to be the top pick anyway. And the last thing I want to say, what turned around Louisville basketball this year?
The coach.
Okay. All right, Jared. Take it easy.
Yeah, well, I would argue it's the athletic director who hired the coach. When, what's funny about it, we talk about all this stuff about how the fans are like, oh, no, not Sam Darnold. Oh, God. Last year, Louisville basketball, they thought they were going to hire Dusty May, the guy that took Florida Atlantic to the Final Four. And at the last minute, he switched on them and went to Michigan. And the fans were, oh, no, what are we going to do? Oh, God. And I called the athletic director, Josh Hurd, the next morning. I was checking in like, hey, man, what are you, like, are you going to be okay? And he was like, yeah. He's like, there are other coaches to hire. This Pat Kelsey, he's pretty good. I didn't know Pat Kelsey from a jar of Vicks. He hired Pat Kelsey. Fan base didn't like it. Well, now they're good again. So everybody likes it. Again, sometimes let the guys that are good at their jobs do them. That's what I'd say there. One texter into the text line says, the more I listen to your show, the more I lose respect for reporters because they just sound like yes men trying to break info. So front offices use them as puppets. Here's what I would say. Again, the report out of ESPN by the guy who covers the Giants is that the Giants, quote, multiple league insiders are convinced the Giants have their sights on Shedeur Sanders. I am convinced that means they like Cam Ward. All a reporter can do is report what somebody tells them. That's it. If you go to a sandwich shop and you order a turkey and they make you a turkey, that's all they can do. They can't. Your mind was thinking, you know what? I'd rather have a meatball. There's nothing they can do. Like the reporters, unless they're, bugging people's offices, there's nothing they can do. So that's why I don't hold it against the reporter, but I'm trying to read in between the lines. When I read in between the lines, it's usually that when they say they like this guy, they really like the other guy. 615-737-1025. We hear from the Titans tomorrow. That's right. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game. And let's give something away because why not? Be caller 5 right now at 615-737-1025 and you'll win a pair of tickets to Gary Clark Jr. at the Ryman Auditorium Thursday, March 6th. Good luck. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game.
Right now, I have Cam number 1.
Wow. And if you were Tennessee that needs a quarterback, you would run
If I was picking right now, and I've talked to all these guys, and look, everybody, and everybody knows how much I love Deion Sanders, and that is my guy. And he has supported me from the time we were players to now.
You're going to take Ward first.
I would objectively take Cam Ward first.
Good answer.
There you go. Louis Riddick's advice to the Titans. Take Cam Ward. The Titans brass will meet with the media tomorrow at 9 a.m. And we will probably open our show based off of some of the things they said. Again, we go through this every year. Couple things matter. Number one, in an investigation, details matter. So listen, and we're going to listen closely to every little nook and cranny that comes out of their mouth tomorrow. And number two, assumptions kill. So be careful on that. I do not expect anything newsworthy to come out. I saw PK had a tweet, and he said that he expects Mike Borgonzi will say something that like he's open to trading the first pick, and all of a sudden you'll hear, breaking news, the Titans, and he's right. That's going to happen. I'm not worried about that. But I do wonder, in between the lines, what their plan at quarterback is going to be. Again, if you're Borgonzi, Borgonzi, when he takes the job, can say things like, I haven't had the time to get to know. Well, he's been here for a month now, so he's had the time to watch the tape. So that's going to be something that's asked. And again, as much as you guys hate it, we have made a show, and I have made a career out of listening in between the lines to see what they say. We used to call it Vrabelese. By the way, he meets with the media too. So we shall see how that goes tomorrow. The one question that I have that they might actually answer tomorrow is, are you playing J.C. Latham at left tackle or are you going to play him at right tackle? Because I think he's a right tackle, which, by the way, I got just crushed on last year when I was like, his body is built like a right tackle. He's a right tackle. And Joe Rexrode was like, there's no difference in a right tackle and a left tackle. And then I took the body sizes of the top 5 left tackles and the top 5 right tackles, and it's different. So I do wonder, now that we've got, the Rand Carthon bullcrap out, like, is he going to play left tackle or is he going to play right tackle? One texter says, I hope the Titans don't draft a quarterback. It would be a typical Titans move to hinge their hopes on a rookie quarterback behind an abysmal offensive line. They need to embrace a rebuild, in my opinion, and not doing stuff like paying top dollar for a receiver when they have no foundation. I'm no expert, but if possible, I trade back for a team's first pick next year, but only far back enough that I could still get Abdul Carter or Mason Graham, because I don't think either of those guys should be passed on. Then I'd focus all other resources on building an offensive line. Okay, here's the problem with that. Number one, somebody has to be willing to trade you next year's first-round pick for you to move back. And in order to move back to 4, to guarantee yourself Abdul Carter or Mason Graham, one of those 3 teams has to be willing to do it. And I'm not sure they would. The second thing is this. I understand the idea that this team is not a quarterback away. But compare yourself to the Patriots. Who would you rather be right now? The Patriots have a team that sucks too. They have a quarterback. Like, they think they have Drake May. And Drake May was a better prospect than Will Levis, and I think there may be a little something to Drake May. If the quarterback was a franchise changer, had the potential to be a franchise quarterback, I'd take him. But I don't think these guys do. And I think the best guy out there is the guy in Minnesota, who you don't have to use the first pick on. That's it for us. The real start of the league year is tomorrow with the combine. It technically doesn't start for like another 15 days, but the fun tomorrow. Stillman and Company. We'll see you then. The Commodore Hour. Big win for Vanderbilt. Big win against Ole Miss. Although they got to figure out what they're doing with these first half leads. That's next. Stillman and Company. Orders 5 the game.